That's all it is. But there's a lot of airspace to cover for Milroe. Still looking. Firing. Near corner. It's caught! Touchdown, Alabama! Isaiah Bond! On a 4th and a mile!
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Power formation, everybody lined up close to the football. Benson, first down, still running. Trey Benson, all the way to the end zone. Hat-trick touchdown for Benson.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Another blitz. One-on-one for Neighbors. He's got it! Touchdown!
Oh, my goodness.
By Malik Neighbors!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Ray Davis. Here goes Ray! Say goodbye to Ray! Into the end zone! And the Cats are in control!
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Epps motions. Retzlaff's throw. It's brought in by the tight end Rex, and then taken away by Oklahoma State, and that's the ball game.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Single receiver to the left. Beck with a low snap, but handles it. Fires far side. Ball is caught. And K-State needs to make the stop, and they don't. They lose contain, and he's down the sideline. Jalen Knoll will score for Iowa State. They have the lead with 8:04 to go.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And good afternoon on this Wednesday, November the 29th. Wrapping up yet another month, not far from the last month of the year. And yes, we will get into the college football playoff rankings and what it all means and a couple of comments from those who are on the committee. I will tell you now, Paxton, who texted me last night with some very naughty language when it comes to the committee. What we have learned, Craig and Paul, what have we learned about the college football playoff committee? And you cannot get too high and you cannot get too low.
Everything they say until Sunday doesn't matter. Like everything they said until Sunday does not matter. It's all filler for a television show. Now, if you're a Texas fan, it might stress you out that they've ranked you behind Oregon every single time. So if Oregon wins, it seems that they feel Oregon is better than you and that Oregon will get in over you if it comes down to a battle of one-loss teams getting in if there's only one of those, theoretically. Or if there's more than one of those, they're definitely getting in and you're still, behind them no matter what. But
what about the stress of Ohio State also?
But yeah, all that.
And that's what I'm saying.
You can't worry about it until the games are played. You can just go out and play and then wait for it. You're either going to get in or you're not. And you can be mad about it when it is, but being mad about it before it happens is the least productive emotion you can have.
Yeah, but that's college football fans. I mean, that's, what you're supposed to do. I mean, you're supposed to be upset that your team's not in there with 1 week to go, and you're supposed to be upset that there's not really a great reason as to why Oregon is above you at this point, because there is an argument that can be made and you can compare side by side, and if it's a forward-thinking vote, then you can see where Oregon would be in because they're just assuming that they're going to beat Washington, but if it's not, then what reason do they have to be over some of the schools that they're over, like at Texas right now? Mm-hmm. They really don't have a solid, no doubt about it, they should be above argument, and so, if you're Texas, you need a lot of help this weekend. I can see where you're a bit nervous. I mean, it's understandable to be nervous, to be a little bit upset, to be questioning it. But also, yeah, if you've been following along with the playoff for a few years now, you know this is nothing new. It's just that you're more new to this whole party, and so you're getting the first dose of it really for the first time. And so that's what I think is hard for Texas fans to reconcile with right now, is that this is just new. It's new as far as being this in the mix and having it teetering so so much there on the edge with so little time left. And so, I think there's a lot of exasperation, a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion, and those are all normal emotions when you have a team that's in the mix for the college football playoff. I mean, that is life in the college football playoff if you're not a Georgia per se or an Alabama, although Alabama's got their own questions right now as far as the college football playoff goes. So, to Paul's point, I think that's just getting their first real dose of what that committee and that weekly television show can be like and how frustrating and nonsensical it can be at times, especially when you feel like the arguments kind of flip depending on the way the wind is blowing. And you know what? That was something that TCU, Baylor, way back in the very first year, and others along the way have experienced. There was game control. Y'all didn't know about game control, or you didn't, get affected by game control or body clocks. Body clocks were a thing back in 2014. Your team could get penalized if it fit the narrative because, they have to travel farther and they might be more tired, and so that means they might not be as up to snuff as one other team. That was an actual argument at one point in time when Jeff Long was running the show. So this is not the first time this thing has gotten silly and kind of, wonky in terms of the explanations. It's a every year thing. Some years are just more complicated than others, and I think we're in a year where it is more complicated than others because there is such a log jam, and not just a log jam, but it's not like we're talking about Tulane or TCU, even though we saw a situation there with TCU last year. They eventually got the nod. But this isn't just some team that's knocking on the door. It's Texas that's knocking on the door, right?
Yeah.
It's Alabama that's knocking on the door. So that makes it a little bit different. And there's not just we'll just go take Ohio State and everything will be fine and nobody will chirp too loud because, their fan bases combined don't add up to Ohio State. Not in this case. Those fan bases are just as big and just as loud. And so
is the tradition and logo. Yeah.
That makes it a little bit more explosive and a little bit more interesting. But, if you're a Texas fan, you have a right to be frustrated. Now, again, to Paul's point, I wouldn't go jumping off the ledge. I mean, there's still a lot of chaos that can happen this weekend. But, coming out of last night, you are not feeling great about where you're positioned, and there's a very real possibility that you could somehow go 12-1 and be left out of the playoff. I mean, there is a formula where that could happen the way that it's set up right now with you being behind Oregon, most notably from last night's rankings. So it's not done. Go win, go beat Oklahoma State, go do it in convincing fashion, then kick your legs up, and we'll have, the Pac game on Friday night.
Yep.
So you'll know there's something, and then watch the rest of the games on Saturday and hope for some chaos. But, this is life in the playoff.
We're going to get to some of the Big 12 awards in a moment, and that's already a part of the discussion in the chat room. What is better for Texas? Washington winning, unbeaten, that seals at least one of the spots, or Oregon winning? Which is worse for them?
Oregon winning is worse for them because, again, Oregon's been ranked ahead of them every single time. And,
but Washington winning would seal.
Well, Washington winning, they still would have the Florida State thing.
Yeah,
okay. So that's
Washington have the argument of we lost, but we also beat the team that we lost to. And we lost
which is why I thought Oklahoma would have been great to have.
And that's like, I just saw Paxton, they only lost by 4 with 60 seconds left to Oklahoma. Yeah, but Alabama's got the kind of the worst argument of everybody because if Texas wins, when they say, well, who did you lose to? They got to hope that they go under the Baylor TCU thing. Well, we lost to Texas, but Texas lost to Oklahoma, so Texas is ranked higher than Oklahoma, so our loss was better than theirs.
Yeah, everybody has their own argument. Oregon fans can say our loss was a team ranked in the top 5 all year long, and then we came back and beat them. And then where Texas can say, but we beat whatever, Alabama 8th, but then you lost to 11 or 12 Oklahoma. It's so everybody can tell a story.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't get, some of this is, okay, who won there? To me, it's did you win your conference? Did you win all your games? All those things, and then you start getting into where you have to start splitting hairs on the strength of schedule. But if you're trying to look for, game control and, which team looked the best all season, well, really, other than Michigan, who had the worst schedule of anybody in that as far as who they had to play until the last month, everybody's going to have pimples. Like nobody's showing up perfectly there. Georgia, kind of sleepwalked through the first part of the season. Everybody's like, Oregon's got some big wins, but they've got a loss. There are all those things there. Washington, they've played fast and loose several times this year. So nobody's perfect because in that top about 12 teams, there's not a lot of separation. There really isn't.
We're going to break down that later because there's also other news today that came out in the last 45 minutes to an hour. The Big 12 releasing their college football awards. Their coach of the year. Who do you think it is?
Well, I already saw who it is,
okay.
But I know who I would have voted for or who I would have been stewing over as far as a vote, and it wouldn't have been the guy who got it here.
I would not. I know what they did to pull themselves out of a hole and then again got blown the hell out in Orlando. It's been a nice story what Gundy has done. Paul, your thoughts about
mine would have been
isn't it usually the team that wins it?
Mine would have been Sark. I mean, I would have put it if you have first, second, third place vote in all these things, you put it down.
Yeah.
My top three would have been Sark, Venables, and Gundy. Those are the ones I think that did the best job this year, especially given Oklahoma where they were last year. The fact that Texas hasn't been, good for a long time or reliable, and this is a really good Texas team, and that's because of Sark. So I would have voted for Sark. Not that Gundy isn't deserving. He's won it 2 other times. So, but yeah, he would have gotten a third place vote for me, but I think it's Sark.
All right, wet blanket, ha, 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 wet blanket, eat crap 365,
Yeah,
Stan saying we're Gundy hunters, and that's fine. Thank you for watching us, by the way, and what we do. If Gundy would have run the table or lost one game in the Big 12, but run the table, I think there's no question he's a part of this conversation because of last year's team. But Texas pretty much dictated this conference from start to finish. It eventually just outlasted everybody. There is never a right answer. Like Paxton's pissed off because Texas has got people in front of them. If you're an Oklahoma State fan, just because we didn't vote for or don't vote for Mike Gundy doesn't mean we hate Mike Gundy or Oklahoma State. Grow up.
You don't have to explain yourself.
No, I just wish you'd grow up and actually just act like an adult when it comes to things like this.
It's college football.
Right. But it's also stupid to me to be having your panties in a wad because
do you know that, or are you getting trolled?
No, this is wet blanket. What?
I mean, they're laughing and you're getting upset about it, so I think that you're getting your.
I'll just tell you, Wet Blanket. I don't even know his
365. Yeah, I don't know of course, Wet Blanket has a history with us.
Yeah, I don't know his real name, so that's the other thing about that. Or whoever that is. But the good points on the chat though, they did bring up Neil Brown. I left him out. Duke was 8-4 when they were picked 14th in the league. So there's an argument for everybody. I personally would have picked Sark because of the fact that he has. I don't know, some of this has to be appreciated even by the Texas haters, like me. That is a very difficult job. They're all difficult, but it's made more difficult when the two guys before you did not succeed to gigantic fashion in Charlie Strong and Tom Herman, and you're the guy who's like, well, you have to fix this, and he has. So to me, the weight of that also goes into it.
All right, from MBM, Oklahoma State was picked near to finish near last, when the crazy portal turnover. That's a valid point. Yes, they were. And they found a way to still play for the championship despite the fact they lost a bunch of their roster in the offseason.
Yeah, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, good for Mike Gundy. I don't know if I could vote a guy who, speaking of, wet blankets and eating crap, got beat 45-3 on a very rainy day in Orlando. But, that rest of the schedule was good enough to overcome that and get them into the Big 12 championship game. And so good for Mike Gundy. I think he's a very worthy candidate. But, it's not like it has to everything be clear-cut. There can be others that were deserving of it. I think you could make a very good case for Neil Brown. I'm glad you remembered him because given where they started off, I think that to get to the point where you're, flirting with the possibility of not just getting into a bowl game, but being, very easily into a bowl game, winning 8 or 9 games is a really great coaching job. And I know there's still West Virginia fans that would love it if he wasn't back next year. But given what the projection was of being dead last in this conference to getting to where they were, in the postseason, and playing and having some games that mattered in the standings, did a great job. I think Sarkisian obviously is very deserving of a mention as well. And if you voted for him, given the way that they kind of ran through the Big 12, not that they didn't struggle or have their close calls, but ultimately they got out on the other side of it clean, and their only loss. They're not completely clean. Their only loss being to Oklahoma, but being the circumstances of that, I mean, that was just one of those wild finishes. So they're that close to being unbeaten and definitely in the playoff. And so I think if you voted for Sark, that's understandable. If you voted for Mike Gundy, that's understandable. If you voted for Neil Brown,
or Matt
that's
Campbell,
understandable.
maybe?
If you voted for Matt Campbell, I was about to bring him up, given what they started off with, that's understandable. Everybody's got a different take or a different opinion or a different slant. So, enough people thought it was Mike Gundy. I think there's cases to be made elsewhere, but he's also deserving. So good for him, and there you go.
Also, let's remind people, the media doesn't vote on this award. They don't vote on these awards. These are voted on by the league's 14 head coaches.
Wait a minute, who?
By the head coaches.
Exactly right.
Who are not allowed to vote for their own players or people. So Mike Gundy couldn't vote for himself no matter how much he may have wanted to. And part of this, I would believe Mike Gundy didn't give a crap. Like, I have to do this today. All right, let's go through it. But that's who votes on it. So the Big 12 awards are selected by the coaches. And so you can be mad at the media all you want. We don't get a vote in this, and we'll get a vote when some of us get votes when the AP does their stuff, but we don't. This is one we don't vote in. This is all by the coaches. So if you're mad because somebody got Player of the Year or didn't get Player of the Year or didn't get Coach of the Year, then there's 14 people you got to be mad at, and they're the highest paid people in the league.
The same people who were idiots, apparently, or whoever voted for Mike Gundy as Coach of the Year. Who is the Offensive Player of the Year? Ollie Gordon.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any argument about that? There probably could be an argument or two about that, but I think that's the right choice. That doesn't mean if Jonathan Brooks had stayed healthy, which he didn't, or maybe a couple of others, that there wouldn't have been. I don't even know what the vote was, but Ollie Gordon II is the Offensive Player of the Year.
This is the easiest call. This is not even like, well, if this would have happened or that would have happened. No, and that happened anyways. So Jonathan Brooks did get hurt, and so that was real. That happened, and so that played into it. He could have maybe had a run, to your point, where he reels off a couple more 100-yard games, and he's the best player on that Texas offense, and he gets a nod for that. But, this one seems to be the most simple vote, straight to the point, academic call that you could have had. Ollie Gordon, yeah, pretty clearly he's the Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, and there could be, cases made, but to me, this was one of the easiest calls of the entire list. Very simple in comparison to the Coach of the Year nod there. So, yeah, not surprised to see him get that vote from the league's coaches.
All right. I do not have the other awards yet. I just went to the Big 12 site. I have not seen them yet. I will be stunned if the Defensive Player of the Year is not Devondre Sweat.
It is Devondre Sweat.
Okay, all right. I had not seen that yet. Perfect.
Yes.
It should be.
Here, I'll just go through them so you'll know.
All right.
The Offensive Player of the Year, Ollie Gordon. Defensive Player of the Year, Devondre Sweat, just in case you missed that. Offensive Newcomer of the Year, Adonai Mitchell from Texas. Defensive Newcomer of the Year, Austin Booker from Kansas. Offensive Freshman of the Year, Rocco Becht of Iowa State. Defensive Freshman of the Year, Anthony Hill of Texas, and Ben Roberts of Texas Tech. Special Teams Player of the Year. This one surprised me a little bit, although he's been really good. Austin McNamara, the punter at Tech. I thought it might have been Burt Auburn. But the Offensive Lineman of the Year, this should not come as a surprise, is Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. Defensive Lineman of the Year, guess who it is?
Defensive Lineman of the Year?
Defensive Lineman of the Year.
Well, if Devondre Sweat's the Defensive Player of the Year, and if you cannot be that, then I don't know who it would be.
Then you just take two steps to the right.
Byron Murphy.
Yeah.
Byron Murphy. Yeah.
And it's Byron Murphy is the Defensive Lineman of the Year. And the Chuck Ninus Coach of the Year, of course, is the mullet, Mike Gundy.
All right. There we are with that. A lot more to get to when it comes to the college football playoff. We will have Matt Baker, who covers Florida State from the Tampa Bay Times. He'll join us here momentarily. Also, I had a conversation earlier today with Brian Haydad, Sports Talk Mississippi, on the Jeff Lebby hiring for Mississippi State. Tim Brando will join us today at 5. We are wide open between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock today. And, oh, by the way, the Big 12 also announcing all the entertainment. We had discussed that before with the WWE, et cetera. And Nelly, of course, performing at halftime of the Big 12 championship game on Saturday. Scott Drew will join us today a little bit later on in the 5 o'clock hour. He will do that as well. Let's run through a couple of things real quick. If the college football playoff was 12 teams, we do this every time with Ross Dellinger. It just changed. It's been tweaked a little bit or different matchups. This is what it would look like if, in fact, this was next year, which, of course, is the 5 conference champions of the 6. But Michigan would have a first-round bye that would meet Texas or Penn State. Then you have Ohio State, Ole Miss, the winner. They'll take on Washington. Georgia awaits. How about maybe playing Alabama again after in the SEC championship game, if that was to be the case, against Missouri and Oregon, Tulane. They're the group of 5 highest-rated team. They would play the Seminoles of Florida State.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I like to look at the matchups here, and Michigan better hope that Penn State has the best game of its life, because I think Texas is an absolute nightmare matchup for Michigan.
Because of their speed, or because
of their speed, and the fact
TCU on steroids.
Yeah, and the fact that they stop the run, which is what Michigan does most. I mean, they can throw the ball. J.J. McCarthy's good, but that would be the absolute nightmare first matchup to me for Michigan would be Texas. I mean, them and Oregon, but particularly Texas would be an absolute nightmare. And it could still wind up happening, but I think Texas is one of the teams that when you look at Michigan, how they kind of beaten most everybody really badly, Texas is an absolute nightmare for them.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a really tough matchup. That's not the one that you would want. But, man, this would be really cool to be gearing up for, tuning up the band to get into. Obviously, quarter of the field's SEC teams. I mean, there's a whole bracket just to themselves up in the upper right, and then you add Ole Miss in as well. Good representation there with a couple of teams for the Pac. Florida State flying the ACC flag, and Big 12 nowhere to be found outside of Texas. So, how this moves forward, just the only G5 there with Tulane. But yeah, like how this moves forward and what that looks like next year when everything's actually settled and you've got whatever the Pac-2 is and whatever the decision is on what the fields are going to be like moving forward. This is going to be really interesting to track and see kind of what the balance is. But yeah, no surprise that the SEC would probably have the most teams in this thing. But I mean, that looks like a lot of fun. That looks like a heck of a lot of fun. And to see a Texas Penn State in Austin for a playoff spot. And, the winner goes and plays Michigan in the Cotton Bowl just up the road. I mean, that seems like just an insane atmosphere to be a part of. Going to, Eugene and getting Tulane up there. Winner goes on to move Florida State. The atmosphere there would be, bonkers. And so this is going to be really cool when it finally gets going next year. I'm looking very much forward to it. I'm sure it will have its flaws like anything else does. But this is hard not to get a little bit excited about, especially this year. Especially when we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs, thinking about like how this scenario is going to work out in that scenario. Granted, next year we'll be talking about seeding if it's anything like this, but there won't be any question about Texas teetering on the edge or the group of 5 not getting enough respect, although I'm sure there will still be some element of that based on where, a Tulane is positioned. But everybody who's worthy is going to basically get in. Like, you're going to be arguing about the 13th team, which at that point, like, okay, I don't really think you have a solid leg to stand on. If you're not top 12, then I'm sorry if you're 13, but it's not the same as being number 5
right,
or number 6, 7, 8, like in Alabama, Texas right now, who could be the best teams in the country for all we know, but we might not be able to see that in full because they won't get that opportunity. So bring it on. I know it's going to change the game in maybe ways that some people don't like, and maybe there's a part of the fandom in college football that longs for the days where it was just a 4-teamer, but at least for a little while, I'm excited to see what this looks like.
All right, now, there's a lot more to get to. The OU story that came out yesterday afternoon, that's all official. Oklahoma with Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley. Luttrell moves to from analyst, will call the plays as the title of offensive coordinator. He will also coach the quarterbacks. And then Joe John Finley adds the title of co-offensive coordinator, will help with the game planning. That way both can get a bump, both can get a different title, and both can be heavily involved in running the Oklahoma offense with Jackson Arnold.
Oh, I think Jackson Arnold and Seth Luttrell is going to be fun to watch. I think that is and Joe John Finley. But like for Seth Luttrell calling plays, we know what he can do. As we've seen him call plays and at a lot of different places, be the head coach at North Texas for what has been their best season too. So he's got some juice. I think Jackson Arnold and Seth Luttrell, watch out, SEC. That's going to be fun.
All right. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good move. It's just a logical move to go with Seth Luttrell. I didn't so much have Joe John Finley in mind, but I read enough to where that makes sense as well. And I think you're excited if you're Oklahoma about the possibilities moving forward. I've seen plenty of arguments made that this is more of a style that will benefit Brent Venables and what he likes to do. Now, some of that could be sunshine pumping. Some of that could just be, pure unadulterated optimism. But it does seem like there's a pretty unanimous sense of, we're moving in the right direction. This was a great replacement, with both of those guys versus what you had with Jeff Lebby. Good luck to him. Bon voyage. But no, we're happy with who we got, and we're not going to skip a beat. In fact, we might even get a little bit better because of the way that it fits into the team overall. So we'll see. I mean, they will be challenged, obviously, very quickly that first year in the SEC. So, I think at the same time, though, when you look at the way the offenses are going in the SEC, that they'll slip right in there and just be one of many that are doing kind of similar things. And there's a lot of that old Bryles offense that's rolling throughout that league right now. And now you've got a head coach that's in that family that's been running that system for years. And we know how that's infiltrated at Tennessee and so on and so forth. So, there's going to be some big defenses, but there's also going to be some big offenses. And I'm excited to see what that looks like for Oklahoma. But I think everybody's happy in the end, and that's not always the case when you lose a coach.
All right, well, there's that. Trent Bray. And we got to take a break because Matt Baker coming up to talk and discuss Florida State and how they view the college playoffs. And then, of course, just around the corner, what Mississippi State, their thoughts on the arrival of Jeff Lebby. He, and Craig, you mentioned this yesterday, he is now the head coach. They didn't waste much time taking care of the Jonathan Smith head to Michigan State. Angie Machado said that this would be a huge deal in trying to keep their players on the roster and also help solidify their recruiting class. So Trent Bray now remains and is now the head coach at Oregon State.
Yeah, I'm glad for the Beavers that they could go ahead and knock one of the or check one of the boxes on the offseason to-do list. There's a lot that's going on there right now, as we've outlined. There's a lot that's going to continue to go on throughout this offseason, and obviously they've got to prepare for a bowl game as well. But a terrific season. Take nothing away from Jonathan Smith, but I know that was a tough pill to swallow for a lot of that fan base. But I think that quickly moving and, just staying in-house with a guy that a lot of the players clearly love, that knows the school, that knows the issues at hand, that knows, what's what and what's going on. He's not coming in blind by any means, is the best move. And based on the reaction, it was the clear move to make was to stay in-house and go with Trent Bray. So I think Damian Martinez basically indicated that he's coming back as a result of that. So there's one of your best players, if not your best player, that's decided already to come back. We'll see on the rest of the roster, but that's a big get to get him back into the fold, because I can imagine where he would have gotten some NIL offers because of how good he is. So, big hire there, and not a surprise, but a good one for Oregon State.
At 4 o'clock, we will get to the transfer portal, tampering, NIL, some crazy stories from coaches, from players who are already getting asked to move on for $500,000 or more. Matt Rule discusses it. Also, the story about Cam Ward and much more. Max Olson, who will join us tomorrow on the 2020 class of quarterbacks, the top 50 quarterbacks, and how many of them are with their original team. This is 365 Sports.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and more. New bikes arrived and are waiting for you to test yourself, compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power, and with indoor cycling classes every day. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and a tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman, assistant junior pro Kennup, adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com, or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one, commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Don't miss out on the biggest deals of the year during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adventure, style, and comfort of the new 2023 Jeep lineup. Shop our great selections in-store or online today and start your Jeep adventure. This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, we're running late with Matt Baker. We're going to get to Matt from the Tampa Bay Times. Craig, a note about a quarterback, yet another one, in the transfer portal that came down here in the last 5 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Matt's familiar. It's out in ACC country, but not a total surprise here because this has been talked about a little bit or speculated about. But Duke quarterback Riley Leonard has officially entered the transfer portal, so that is official now that he will be heading in there, and he will have no shortage of suitors, I am sure, and his bank account will be treated very kindly as well.
All right, we're now joined Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times. We've had Matt on many times through some of the realignment talk and also what else has been going on at FSU and the ACC. Matt, thanks for your time. So how concerned, or is there a level of concern from Florida State fans if they win that they still may not be a part of the 4 teams that make the college football playoff?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yep.
Yeah, there's definitely a level of concern, and I think there should be. Not an extreme level, but some level. I mean, if you kind of parse what Boo Corrigan, the committee chairperson, said the other night, he said that Florida State without Jordan Travis is a different team. Well, yes, duh, we all have eyes, we all have brains, we can see that there are different teams. The fact that he said it in that way, I thought was interesting because it leaves the door open here. If, because remember, the committee's charge is to pick the 4 best teams, period. Not the 4 most deserving, not the 4 with the best resume, although that stuff is included in this conversation. It's the 4 best teams. And if you believe that FSU is a different team without Travis, as they are, then that opens the door to say they're not one of the 4 best teams, because the team that beat Duke, the team that beat Clemson, the team that beat LSU, that's not the one that we see this weekend. And then the fact that, let's not exclude the fact here that Florida State's got a tough matchup in Louisville. Florida State is not the same team without Jordan Travis. Louisville's got a good defense. They've got a good run game. And Florida State, one of their weaknesses is the run defense and potentially giving up some explosive plays. So it's a tough matchup there, just excluding the playoff aspect of it too.
Do you think, part of it is, look, Tate Rodemaker didn't look like a world beater against Florida in a bad defense in a rivalry game last week by any stretch of the imagination. But do you think that maybe this week, if Tate Rodemaker plays, kind of a good game, but not, he's not going to play a Jordan Travis game because only Jordan Travis can do that, that maybe some of that will back off?
Oh, for sure. 100%. Now, I don't think it's fair to judge Florida State under Tate Rodemaker just by the Gators game. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it was his first start on the road, all that stuff. We'll have another sample size with how he does good, bad, or ugly against Louisville. And then let's not forget everything else that happened on rivalry weekend, right? Did Alabama look like a clear top 4 team against a not very good Auburn team? No, they did not. Did Georgia look like a world beater against rival Georgia Tech? No, they did not. Did Washington look like a sensational clear top 4 team in the Apple Cup? No, they didn't. It's rivalry games. Emotions are high. The weird things happen in those games. So I think we can't exclude and can't diminish the rivalry aspect to how we view what Tate Rodemaker did and the rest of the Seminoles did as well. And I think that's an important thing that the committee understands. And that means that this Saturday in Charlotte is going to be even more important to kind of get a good gauge on what this team is under Tate.
Matt, as far as that goes and what we did see last week, obviously Trey Benson carried a heavy load there, but defense had to as well. What stood out to you, for better or worse, when it comes to now moving forward about a Seminoles team that has Tate Rodemaker at quarterback as opposed to Jordan Travis?
Yeah, the passing game wasn't as good as I thought. Jordan Travis is an exceptional player. He's going to be somebody that I will remember for a very, very long time. He was not perfect, and will not be perfect at the next level either. He is a sensational scrambler and as elusive as a guy as I've seen. He's in that Lamar Jackson, Bryce Young pantheon with me. But wasn't a great downfield passer for Florida State. He was inaccurate at times. And I kind of thought Tate might be better in that range. That's something he was good at, throwing on the run and throwing down. We saw flashes of it. He had a really nice throw in the seam to Jaheim Bell, had a nice one to Johnny Wilson, but it wasn't as consistent as I had thought. So that was kind of the concern. The other concern, and this is a broader thing, is Florida State has started slow. They fell behind against the Gators, 12-0, fell behind against Duke, fallen behind many times this year. And there's a little bit of 2014 Florida State vibes to them. That was the second Jameis year, if you remember, where they didn't wake up until they were down by 2 scores, and suddenly they taste their own blood and end up kicking the crap out of everybody until they got to Oregon and couldn't do it anymore. This team is not as extreme as that one. And you can spin it the other way too, that they get better as the game goes on and they're able to overcome these. But you can't keep playing with fire like that. And if they go out and have a slow start against Louisville, maybe it won't catch up to them. Maybe they'll be able to go out and dominate the third and fourth quarter and win. But at some point, they're going to play a team that they can't do that against. And it might be Saturday.
Yeah, Matt, I've watched every second of them this year. I've watched every second of them, since I was a student there at FSU. But they seem to be a team to me that is either a victim of their own aggression or they're maybe across the board not mature enough to handle being who they are yet. But they seem to find a way. And does that come from maybe Mike Norvell being more of a steady Eddie there and kind of keeping them focused and not letting them get in their feelings too much?
Yeah, I definitely think that some of that, and just what I was talking about with their ability to finish games, that has been such a focus under Mike Norvell. Go back to and listen to his day one press conference when he got the job. He said something along the lines of, "We're going to be a program that finishes everything we do," and he meant that finishing during the season. He talked about they remember what you do in November, and it's talking about finishing drives, it's finishing plays, and it's finishing games. And that that's 100% real with this team, where they are significantly better in the third and fourth quarter. I think they're top 5 in scoring offense and top 6 or so in scoring defense in the second half. That's not a coincidence. That's the program that Mike Norvell has built, and that's just in how they train. It's how they structure practices, and then it's how they're able to perform and stay steady during the games as well.
Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times, with us on 365 Sports.
Matt, the Louisville kind of, got the best dealt schedule in the ACC this year, where you don't play FSU in the regular season, North Carolina, Clemson, but they still, they shut out Duke, albeit without Riley Leonard. They beat NC State, and then right after that, NC State kind of found their sea legs and got really good again. What would you say is the best way to describe this Louisville team and kind of the way that they've navigated through the year?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong if you kind of say that untested is a bit strong, because they did win at NC State, as you said, figure things out, and they beat at least a good Notre Dame team fairly handily. But look, they're good. They're not a great team. They're not in that kind of the Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. They're not in that tier. But I think they're in that good tier, maybe a notch below the kind of Penn State, Ole Miss guys. They've got some things they do very well. I like their running game a lot. Jawar Jordan is excellent. Isaac, the other one, he's very good and explosive as well. Their defense can get after you a bit when you watch them, and I like that about them. So they're for them to be where they are in year one under Jeff Brom, to me, is quite impressive. Yes, we can poo-poo the schedule, and I think that's completely 1,000% legitimate. But they don't control the schedule. They played the guys in front of them and went 10-2 in year one.
Matt, when you think about all the turmoil earlier in the year about realignment, the ACC, has that really come up much once most of the games started to be played? Is that even in any kind of discussion or smoke in the air?
It's not something that's being talked about an awful lot, but let me paint a doomsday scenario for you.
Oh, please do. Please do. Yeah.
So here's the doomsday scenario. Let's say Florida State wins. Let's say it's a close one, okay? And let's say Texas wins, and let's say Alabama beats Georgia handily. We can go into that scenario where Florida State, the eye test will tell you they're not one of the 4 best teams. And you could see Michigan's in, Oregon, Washington, winners in, Texas is in, Alabama's in, and Florida State's not. If that's the scenario, or other related ones where Florida State gets left out despite a win, then imagine the conversations, right? Because the Jordan Travis's injury will be the major factor, but the ACC's relative weakness would be as well. What if Clemson wasn't kind of mediocre this year? What if Duke had been better? What if Miami wasn't just kind of mediocre this year? That type of thing. You could see the ACC's relative weakness, as I think objectively they were the weakest Power 5 conference this year. You could see that being a thing for Florida State boosters and bigwigs and muckety mucks to kind of say, look, we got to get out of here. We went 13-0, and it still wasn't good enough because this conference is not good enough. We got to go.
Matt, you cover the entire state of Florida when it comes to college football, and Miami is still trying to find themselves under Mario Cristobal. Florida really is under Billy Napier. They're not going to a bowl game this year. What do you think are and it's different, both of them are in different situations, but what do you think the future are for those two guys?
Yeah, Miami, I don't have figured out. I have never had them figured out in all the years I've been in this job. When I think they're going to be okay, they're bad. When I think they're not good, they are. I do not have them figured out. I think they need to do some soul searching in terms of game management in particular. Mario can amass talent. I don't think there's a question about that. But even going back to when he was at Oregon, I don't think he maximized all the talent he amassed, if that makes sense. I think they underachieved a little bit. And I think we've seen that in Miami, and that's going to be something that he has to figure out. What do I need to do in terms of program structure, assistant staff, whatever it is, to get the most out of these guys? So that's Miami. Florida's a whole different can of worms, buddy. There's a lot of soul searching they're going to have to do. The defense was better in a lot of ways, but not good enough. I think they're going to have to look at every bit of Billy Napier's organization. He calls his own plays offensively right now. Does that need to change? Does that make sense for him to be the play caller with so much going on for a head coach in this era? The defense, again, was better, but not good enough by any means. Does the defensive structure have to change? Not just the assistants, but the way their system. Special teams has not been good enough. There's been way too many disastrous mistakes and boneheaded things. They need a coordinator. There's this army of analysts and everything he brought in. Did they need to restructure it? I could go on and on and on this because I think Florida State's the best team in the state. It's not even close. I'm excited to cover them in the ACC title game, and if they go to the playoff, that as well. But the Gators, to me, are just fascinating because you could see it going absolutely either way, and there's so many unknowns. I'm just very interested to see how that all plays out.
Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times. Matt, your thoughts right now. Let's just say those who are supposed to win this weekend do, which I don't know if that's going to happen. That means Oregon's favored to beat Washington. Texas is expected to beat Oklahoma State. Georgia, slight favorite against Alabama. Obviously, the Big Ten, Michigan expected to beat Iowa. And also the ACC, State. Florida State, as you just mentioned, expected to beat Louisville. If that happens, what are your four teams?
Georgia's the easy one, no question. Michigan's the clear two, no question there. Then Florida State and Oregon are 3 and 4. I don't have strong feelings on that one way or the other. You can argue Oregon's been so dominant that they would deserve it, and the fact that they would have avenged the only loss, which was a close one at Washington, I think that's a fine argument. If Florida State, obviously they would be undefeated, and if Tate and that offense and everything else, if they look like a top 4 team, if they look really playoff worthy, then you could certainly put them at 3 ahead of Oregon. But that's to me those are the teams. 1 and 2 are pretty clear. 3 and 4, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other.
Matt, thank you very much. We appreciate your knowledge. State of Florida, Florida State, Tampa Bay Times with us on 365 Sports. When we come back a little bit later on, we will hear from Brian Haydad, who covers Mississippi State, on the hiring of Jeff Lebby.
Yeah, it's just a question of most deserving or, most or best teams. I mean, it's where you fall on that line. And I think it's supposed to be, the 4 best teams, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to be seeing at the end of the year? And if that's the case, then the entire argument's very subjective. You can take that and run with it and say Florida State right now is not one of the 4 best teams. But if you are one of those that sides more on the side of it does matter what you've done and the regular season does matter and, being unbeaten does matter, and how are you going to penalize an entire team because one guy got hurt when they still went out and won games after he got hurt? That's why we're just in circles with this thing, because some people feel it's one way, and it's nope, 4 best, no matter what, doesn't matter what you did, doesn't matter just who you are right this very moment. Trumps pretty much everything so long as your record is acceptable, right? You can't have 2 losses and we're arguing for, this team's the best. Not like that, obviously. Your resume does matter. But if resumes are all pretty much equal or in the same universe, then are you a 4 best or are you a 4 most deserving? And I think there is a split there for people, and it's understandable because I can see both sides of that coin. And I'm more of one that said last week of if Florida State's unbeaten and they're able to go win a couple of games without Jordan Travis, and they haven't lost at all. I understand that they're not as good without Jordan Travis, but I don't know how you leave them out of the playoff, especially if it's for a team that's lost another game. And then, on the other side, are they one of the 4 best teams right now? No, I don't think that they are. So I'm just glad I don't have to make that decision. I'd be happy to go get put up in a hotel and make that decision along with all the rest of them. But, I don't, and so I'm fascinated to see what they do. But obviously the results this weekend matter because all this talk could be for naught if certain things fall a certain way. But, yeah, that's what it boils down to, most deserving versus best. And there is a split in college football over which one trumps the other.
Everybody has a story and can paint a separate picture that makes them look better than anybody else that's in the discussion. Oh, by the way, the story, there's already some of the recruiting sites that are putting the crystal ball, whatever you want to call it, Riley Leonard to Notre Dame.
Well, he and Will Howard would be an interesting little thing there. And look, If I need a quarterback and Riley Leonard's there, and especially if I'm worried about like the attitude of my team at all, I'm getting Riley Leonard. That guy's tough. He's a good player that hasn't played with a bunch of really good skill players. I mean, Duke got better under Mike Elko the last couple of years, and they were a very run-first offense, but he's a really good runner himself. He's a dude that a lot of people feel is an NFL quarterback, so he's got a good arm. There's not many knocks on him, especially as a college quarterback, and Notre Dame would make a ton of sense, and if Notre Dame just goes up and makes their decision, then for schools like Nebraska or Miami, who are definitely going to get into this, that's going to make it a whole lot easier. So,
all right, speaking of Nebraska, this is not really about them, but it is. Matt Rule, you have that one, Garrett? Matt Rule quoted as saying, make no mistake, a good quarterback in the portal cost $1 million to $1.5 million to $2 million right now. So just so we're on the same page, right? Let's make sure we all understand what's happening. There are some teams that have $6-7 million players playing for them. Now, I don't know. I can't imagine $6 to $7 million, but $6 to $7 million players. Then perhaps I would believe that
$6 to $7 $1 million.
Yeah,
players.
that's what I get from that too.
There might be a couple that are that might be in the $2 million range. I would not think that you'd pay pro quarterback rates.
Well, it always goes up, right? And Bryce Young was at $1 million 2 years ago.
Yeah, but if you're paying $7 million a year for a guy, but yes, I think he'd probably mean $6 to $7 $1 million guy, because if you've got a quarterback at say $1.5 million, you might have a left tackle at $1 million, a defensive end at $1 million, a cornerback at $1 million, a wide receiver at $1 million. So there. It's not unfathomable to see that to have those numbers thrown out there.
Yeah, I mean, we saw rumors about Quinn Ewers getting $1 million 3 years ago. Yeah. I mean, that's been out there. Various guys have been rumored to get that type of money. So that's probably what he was referring to, because I'm sitting here trying to think who would be worth $6 to $7 million. I mean, I can't really think of too many guys that would be $6 to $7 million players on many teams.
Even if it was free agency with Penix and Nix, and if all of them were coming back and they could be in the free agent market, I can't imagine that would not even be sniffed.
I think you could take all of the blue bloods, so to speak, and the ones that everybody fears could, go run away with this whole game. And even though that list would get chopped down tremendously if you're talking about paying $6 million for single players. I mean, I don't know how many athletic departments could feasibly swing that, even the ones that have a lot of money, because that's one guy, and now multiply that with the various blue chips those rosters have. And yeah, that's hard to picture. But yeah, 2, 3, 4, I'm sure it's going to creep up. We're probably not that far away, from $6 to $7 million, some quarterback. I mean, there's a whole talk about how much Tennessee was paying for Nico Iamaleava. So, I mean, who really knows? It's part of why it's just so strange. It's all so quiet and secret, we got to keep it secret. It's like we got these rules now we can pay guys, but God forbid we let it be known. And so we'll never, I guess, quite know for sure what's actually going and being thrown around behind the scenes. But 6 to 7 players making $1 million on certain teams, I can absolutely see that on especially a lot of the top teams. And
how much you
welcome
think
back
Caleb's
to college
getting?
Football, Matt Rule.
Somebody brought up if it was higher than that, like 4 or 5 or 6 million, whatever he got with endorsements, not to mention whatever NIL money he received. Caleb Williams.
Oh yeah. I mean, I could definitely see him getting into the few millions range. And there's other guys that certain places that could get multiple millions, I'm sure. I just wonder, how much is eventually even Texas A&M's okay, that's a little bit we can't go that high for you alone. We've got other guys to pay for. We don't have the salary cap. That's what I mean. All that, lack of salary cap, lack of transparency. We don't really know. And so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe School A has got, $6 million invested in their quarterback and $2 million in their running back, and maybe they're doing it that kind of big, but it's hard to see a lot of teams being able to float that. But yeah, I mean that's college football now, and that's what Matt Rule walked back into, and that's something that he, along with everybody else, is learning to adjust to. And if you're not one of those that's able to do that, then you better be one hell of a school when it comes to development. And you better be able to do some other things or be a draw in some other ways that offsets not being able to maybe pony up that much money. So, yeah, it's a tough world out there.
And so if you're Baylor and you've been behind the curve or you're running, trying to catch up, you probably a part of your game plan, whatever that is with Dave Aranda, you got to start putting a number at each position.
Yeah.
Let's spend $1.5 million here, $400,000 here, or whatever.
You know what I think Baylor's strategy needs to be, because they've got a lot to do in a short amount of time? They need to do what the Las Vegas, the Knights, the hockey team did. When they had their expansion draft, they drafted everybody off of everyone else's second line. So they knew that their first line was kind of a second line, and their second line was a second line, but the third and fourth lines were second lines. So as they were going through, they were, because you're not going to take the roster all of a sudden and be Texas next year. Like, that's not what you can do. But if you kind of focus on the transfer portal, and you're probably not going to get, you're not going to get Cam Ward at whatever his money's going to be if he goes in, or Riley Leonard's money's going to be wherever he's going to go, or Will Howard. But if you can get the guys who are on the second line, then you can maybe improve that a little bit faster.
All right.
So to me, that would be the strategy. Did I say that right, Garrett, about Vegas?
Yes, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to take the Brian Haydad interview on Mississippi State and push it back to about 4:25 or 4:30 because we want to get back. Is it okay?
Well, it's in the break. It's in the break. I already mixed it down. So.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, we can come back with that one, but we will still get into more. Cam Ward, that story. Good Lord, if that's true, and it wouldn't surprise me about what he's already being offered, and he hasn't even entered the portal yet, is eye-opening. Brock Hewitt with a little nugget about that. A Houston defensive tackle offered, according to Joseph Duarte, $500,000 and more. And Max Olson on the class of 2020, out of the top 50. Don't look this up if you haven't. Out of the top 50 quarterbacks of the class of 2020, how many of them are still with their original team? Put it up in the chat room. I'll tell you if you get close. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco on Franklin Avenue, and 2 locations to serve you. So if you're in the downtown area and want to swing and pick up some beverages, you can do that. Or if you're at the original location and you're into that craft beer, the local craft bourbon, that's what they've got there. Always churning the roster, always changing things out at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. And their customer service is great. I've been in there several times looking for something specific, couldn't find it. They told me, like, you say, I'm not seeing it. I'm in the whiskey aisle, and they're like, take 2 steps, look down to your left. It's on the bottom shelf, 4th bottle. And you're like, holy cow, how did you know that? That is how good they are there. If you're looking for a recommendation, look, it's holiday party time. Maybe you draw somebody in the Secret Santa that's a beer lover, a whiskey lover, a wine lover, and you have no idea what to get them because that's not your beverage of choice. Walk in there and say, look, I've got this dude in Secret Santa. He really loves vodka. I'm not a vodka person. Tell me something to get. And they can do that for you. They're great. It's absolutely fantastic at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Brian Haydad, Sports Talk Mississippi, with us. David Smoak, 365 Sports. Jeff Lebby, the head coach at Mississippi State in Starkville. Brian, obviously with Mike Leach was there, and Mississippi State's had popular head coaches, but what were your thoughts about the arrival, the anticipation, and what appeared to be exhilaration about the hiring of Jeff Lebby?
Well, for Mississippi State fans, they have just been crying out for offense for a long time. And even when Mike Leach was here, obviously the air raid is an offense that people know. But if you watch the film, I mean, that's not an explosive offense. They controlled the clock. They put together long drives. They just did it throwing the ball rather than handing off. It's been a long time. You may have to go back to State's 2014 team that was #1 in the nation at one point to have a team that really could generate big plays. So Jeff Lebby has come in. He's promising big plays. He's promising a lot of points on the scoreboard. Mississippi State fans, I mean, State football the past few years, it's been kind of boring. It's a grind. It's tough to watch sometimes, especially if you're not a diehard fan. So Jeff Lebby's here to bring some excitement, hopefully, to Mississippi State football, and obviously some wins.
What are your thoughts on what of course, we knew him when he was here at Baylor when they had the great run until everything fell apart, and then he's bounced around. So he's kind of taken his time, along with some other former assistants, to move back up the ladder. Oklahoma more recently. He was at Ole Miss. Your thoughts about what he's done, his resume up until now?
Well, what I like about him is sort of two things. One, he's worked under two outstanding offensive coaches in Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin. Those are two of the best play callers in college football. But then he went to Oklahoma and worked under a defensive head coach. So that was his offense. He was the one calling the plays and making those decisions. So, you know, sometimes when you work with a guy like Heupel or Kiffin, it becomes, well, it's their offense, and you get that worry that is he really running the show. At Oklahoma, he was running that show offensively. The numbers speak for themselves. They were 4th nationally in yards and 3rd in points. So I feel like his resume to me is better than what Dan Mullen's was when Dan Mullen was hired in terms of work experience and where he's been and some of the programs he's worked at. Obviously, Mullen had won a national title as an offensive coordinator, and Lebby doesn't have that. But on the surface, I thought if State wasn't going to be able to get a sitting head coach, that Lebby was probably the top coordinator available, and they were able to reel him in.
So what is the quarterback room like? I thought I saw where Will Rogers is going to enter the transfer portal. What are they like at that position? And I'm sure no matter what it is, that Lebby's going to bring in some talent to play that position.
Yeah, they're light there right now because Will Rogers has made the move into the transfer portal. I don't expect him back at Mississippi State. His career as a Bulldog is over. And then Lebby will have to go to the portal, like you said. He's got Mike Wright, who you watch Mississippi State playing this year. I mean, the kid's a good athlete. I think he's a really good teammate, but he's not an SEC quarterback. I feel like I'm being kind when I say that. Then they had the kid who was a true freshman this year. He can redshirt. So he'll be a redshirt freshman next year. Chris Parson, a 4-star kid out of high school who has a lot of tools, but he's not ready to take the reins just yet. So, yeah, Mississippi State will definitely be into the transfer portal. Obviously, some people are going to list Dylan Gabriel's name there, the Oklahoma quarterback, but he might want to reunite with Lebby as a grad transfer. There's some early rumor mongering there, but the State's starting quarterback is not at Mississippi State right now, so we'll see who that ends up being.
So, as far as what he can do, the obviously transfer portal opens up on December the 4th, although we see quarterbacks and others right now already flooding, at least announcing it. Does that give him enough time to grab somebody in the portal or a chunk of players and what the class will be when they have a signing day sometime in December?
Well, they don't have any choice. He's got to get those guys into the roster that even if State, let's say Zach Arnett had been really successful and State had been an 8 or 9 win team, they were going to have to hit the portal hard this year anyway. They brought back a lot of guys last year. They had a lot of super seniors and COVID seniors or whatever you want to call them. And so they were going to have to hit the portal in a big way anyway. But now with Lebby coming in, I expect there to be a good bit of guys going out. I think State's going to look a little bit more this year like Ole Miss has looked the past couple of years in the portal. They may have to get 20 guys out of there on top of their signing class because they've just got a lot of holes to fill. It's not a rebuild because nowadays in college football with the portal, I don't know that you have to say, hey, it's going to take 2 or 3 years. I think you can flip your roster and be competitive back in 1 year if you do things right. But next year is definitely going to be a challenge for Jeff Lebby in his first season at Starkville just because he's going to have so many new faces. Obviously,
the tragedy and the loss of Mike Leach was stunning and it hit everybody, not just Starkville, Mississippi State, but college football across the country. Was Zach Arnett put in an almost impossible situation following him?
In some ways, for sure, because in all situations, you never want to be the guy who follows the guy.
Yeah,
you always want to have a gap in between them. But for Arnett, as a first-time head coach, he'd only been at 2 programs ever: San Diego State and Mississippi State, and he did what he thought was the right thing, and I totally commend him for it. But some of the decisions he made, the decision to completely get away from the air raid when he had a roster that was kind of built to run the air raid. His choice of an offensive coordinator did not work out. And then Zach Arnett's the coach. When he was the defensive coordinator here at Mississippi State, he was a fiery, excitable guy. And if you watched any Mississippi State games this year and saw Zach Arnett, he was just very passive. Talking to him in the press conferences, it felt almost mechanical at times. He just wasn't himself. And I think he wasn't comfortable being the head coach at Mississippi State. So a really sort of an unfortunate situation, but Mississippi State planned for it. If you look at the contract they had Zach Arnett sign, the buyout is minimal. There's a mitigation clause. State may get off the hook for less than a couple of $1 million here. It was obviously set up to if he was good, great, we'll extend him and it'll work. But if not, we could parachute him out of there and get a new coach in after one season. I saw the arrival of Lebby and his family into Starkville, and, of course, the AD on everyone's shoulders. It was amazing. Did he win the press conference? Yeah, 100%. I mean, he talked about scoring points. Mississippi State fans want to hear that. He talked about, being an aggressive recruiting. Mississippi State wants to hear that. And he got a little dig in at Lane Kiffin. And anytime you can get a dig in at the Ole Miss head coach as a Mississippi State head coach, your fans are going to love you. He rang the cowbell. He looked pruned. So, yeah, I would say definitely he won the press conference.
So let's be honest. We know where he was when you mentioned UCF, but obviously Ole Miss, Oklahoma. So he's been at some dudes now. And now obviously in the SEC with Mississippi State. He was a part of the staff at Baylor that had great success, and then everything fell apart. Has that ever been brought up about what he was with? And I'm not trying to question Jeff Lebby, should he have a job, or Kendall Briles, or Randy Clements, or anyone else. I'm not. But was there any at all blowback from anybody?
From the fans on social media, just in my Twitter mentions, there were some fans who were just like, I don't like this. This is not what Mississippi State should stand for. I tend to think that most college football fans, it's not unique to Mississippi State. When a coach comes in and there's some controversy, as soon as the season starts and he's winning games, that kind of just goes to the wayside. It's just the nature of college football. Then you have some people who maybe their principals won't allow it, and they'll be upset about it. And I certainly understand that. You probably have some Auburn fans like that with Hugh Freeze, and you probably have. I mean, it's just everywhere. But by and large, the reception has been very, very positive for Jeff Lebby. And you know, like I said, when he was here at Ole Miss, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about this situation either. So I think by and large, he's going to try to put the past in the past. Now we'll see if he does. You know, you think about what this past year when he brought Art Briles to a game at Oklahoma, and what a controversy that was. I would imagine Zach Selman, the athletic director, has been very specific in his desire about not having Art Briles around this program at this time. So we'll see if that is indeed the case. I think by and large, though, it's been a very positive reception for him.
Last thing, Brian Haydad again with us from Sports Talk Mississippi. Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. How critical was this hire? Anytime it's critical, but with the expanded SEC with Texas and Oklahoma, the way things are going to change, lack of divisions, how critical was it for them to get this thing done?
You really hit on it there. It's sort of a twofold thing. The expansion of the SEC is huge. College football, you know, it feels like it's shifting around. You don't ever want to be in a situation where people are talking about you, hey, if the SEC were to make some moves, they might kick your school out. You don't want to be that. You want to be winning games and being part of the conversation. But the other thing is, in this state, you know, the Egg Bowl rivalry really does define everything. And now Ole Miss has won 10 games, 2 of the last 3 seasons. You couldn't fall behind any further. So Mississippi State had to make a move. They hope that Jeff Lebby can bring the kind of success in that Dan Mullen did. You know, almost, gosh, it's hard to believe it's been that long ago, since 2009. That's what they're hoping for Jeff Lebby, that he can build on the success of the past and maybe take Mississippi State to a more consistent level in the future. I'm
going to ask you about the college football playoff. You saw the latest rankings. Sure. I don't watch those anymore. I haven't, Brian, honestly, since the 2014, the first year, the TCU Baylor craziness, and Ohio State got in, and then but I don't watch them because I think it's made for TV, and I think they changed their narrative to change the narrative to create discussion. That's fine. It's an entertainment show. What are your thoughts about where everyone is now? Who is out among the 7 or 8 that have a chance that no matter what are your thoughts how this is going to end up?
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think that, you know, a lot of these athletic directors who have been on the committee kind of as a status symbol, you know, just wanted to say, oh, I'm on the college football playoff committee. I can take those trips down to Texas and stay at the fancy hotel and eat the big steak dinner. Well, this Saturday, they're going to have tough decisions to make, and they're going to have unpopular decisions to make. I think, you know, Georgia would be in with a win. I don't know that Alabama is in with a win over Georgia. I don't know that for a fact, which is crazy to say when you're saying Alabama. Washington and Oregon, I feel like the Pac-12 champion is going to be in. Michigan will beat Iowa, I think, so they'll be in. I think if Florida State goes undefeated, they should be in. I understand that they're probably going to get waxed by Georgia in the first game, but they went 13-0. You have to reward that. The games have to mean something. So a team like Texas is going to, you know, have a very big case to get in, especially if Alabama can win.
Yep.
But they may get left out, and they may get left out at the expense of Alabama. And it sucks because I love the 12-team playoff that's coming next year. I like the idea of having more opportunities for teams. I think it makes for more excitement. But somebody is going to wake up Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon and look at these rankings and say, we got screwed, and they're going to be telling the truth.
I want chaos, and then what I also love are the possibilities that there are going to be maybe 1 or 2 what I call alpha blue bloods who are going to, like, maybe not be enough of an alpha blue blood because of they're going up against each other. Alabama, Texas beat them, but we all understand what it means. And it's going to be fun. Hey, Brian, thank you very much. Enjoy the Jeff Lebby tenure, and good luck to Mississippi State, and thanks for your time. Brian Haydad, Sports Talk Mississippi on 365 Sports. At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, one of the things about the transfer portal that it really officially opens on December the 4th, but we've already given you some names that have entered. Leonard, and he's probably going to end up at Notre Dame. Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina's in the portal. It's already happening. Tampering is happening. The amount of whatever is the money you need for a quarterback on the market, Matt Rule said is probably between $1.5, $2 million for a pretty good quality quarterback. I don't know what it is, but that's some of what we gave you before the interview about Mississippi State. So, Cam Ward, Craig, you're the one that kind of got hooked up with him pretty quickly with how good he was at Incarnate Word. He went to Washington State. He's been fantastic. Brock Hewart of Fox Sports says that Wazoo star Cam Ward has up to $10 million offers already to transfer. Schools are supposedly contacting him were Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame may be out of the business now, A&M, Auburn. If Ward decides to move on from Pullman, a school will be instantly a contender wherever he ends up.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good player and from Texas, and so that's why I started to pay attention to him maybe a little bit quicker than some others, but went up to Pullman after obviously a good little short stint there at Incarnate Word and has put up huge numbers. He's near the top in pretty much all the main quarterback categories, and obviously Washington State, not as good of a year as they would have loved to have had team-wise, especially in comparison to their in-state rival, but they started off pretty well, and then it hit a little bit of a dip, but he still played pretty strong throughout the year. Semifinalist for the Earl Campbell Award, being here from Texas, and yes, a really good player. To be clear, he's not in the portal. He's not in the portal yet, but you see something like that, and it won't be surprising when, if, and how I guess he jumps into the portal. But that's not surprising. We're just talking a few minutes ago about Matt Rule's comments and the going rate for a quarterback. And so if you're Cam Ward, I don't know what the situation is exactly at Washington State. I don't know their NIL game, especially right now in the midst of everything. I don't know if maybe they can win that lawsuit quicker and take some of that big chunk of money and throw it at Cam Ward. I don't know if the court system can move fast enough.
Well, then they'd have to launder it because it can't come directly from them.
Yeah, true. So, somehow throw that somewhere else and let it come all the way back around. I don't know if there's time for all of that, but
there's always time.
Yeah, well, I don't know for Washington State and Oregon State, for Washington State and getting Cam Ward because he's got to make a decision. But, yeah, I know what you mean, and he's going to have to make a decision. And I don't know and won't pretend to know what his desires are as far as his grander goals, but I'm not surprised in any way, shape, or form to see that tweet or that subject, and I fully believe that that's true. I don't know if it's 10 at this point, but if it is, then I'm not surprised by that, and every team listed there is in the market for a quarterback, or you would expect to be in the market for a quarterback. And sure, maybe Notre Dame's not there now because maybe, we don't know yet, obviously, they're going to get Riley Leonard or this team's going to go get somebody else. But, yeah, Cam Ward's going to make money this offseason. That's for dadgum sure. That's the one thing that I do know 100%. And, whether or not it's going to be at Pullman is the big question.
All right, so there's that. Now, University.
And he would be a really good get especially you're a throwing offense. He would be a very, very good get.
Yeah. All right. You take a team that wins 3 to 4 or 5 games with him, they're going to win 7, 8 or more. Now, Jamari Caldwell, University of Houston. According to Joseph Duarte, sources telling him that he has been offered $500,000 through a third party from a top-tier Big Ten school to transfer from Houston. Those close to Caldwell saying his preference is to remain widely respected defensive lineman coach Brian Early, preferably at Houston or wherever he lands. So there's another one. That's a defensive lineman at $500,000, according to sources. And Duarte does a great job.
Well, Brian Early just found himself into some job interviews, that's for sure.
That's like the high school coach that all of a sudden ends up at whatever school X because he has a senior who's like an elite player, and so he's on the staff. Remember, that used to be a problem in college basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, Brian, I mean, look, if he's good friends with Brian Early and whoever, if it's Willie Fritz or Jeff Traylor or Cliff Kingsbury, whoever takes that Houston job,
secure him before you do anything else.
Doesn't keep Brian Early, then, whoever gets Brian Early is probably going to get this guy. So
imagine in pro sports, if they're just like, he's got a $500,000 offer, We can't tell you who it's from.
I know.
Can't tell you where it came from or how it's even being bandied about, or the team can't talk about it or whatever. I mean, I'm sure like there's some of those rules that are in place at various times in negotiation cycles, but the secrecy, man, I just still keep circling back to that. I get why you kind of have to do that right now, but it does make it just feel really dirty. It makes it feel like it's dirtier than it's really supposed to be. So, yeah, throw out there, Michigan State offered $500,000 for the Houston tackle, and you know what? So what? Like, what does that really change? I guess the schools would then be worried about, well, crap, if they know how much money we're throwing at this guy, then the next guy's going to want that much money, and that's what they're fearful of more than anything else.
And that happens, Greg, even in the NFL, where people know what they're getting. They get
Right.
people's feelings hurt. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's there's a little bit of a racket going on there, but you know what? Maybe with new laws, if they're ever passed, or new rules changes when it comes to that, maybe that'll be a bit more transparent. But for now, it's still as shady as it was, really. We just know that there's actually the dollar figures that are being thrown out, but all of it remains under a shroud. So good for him, good for Cam Ward, good for everybody else. And if you can get a double whammy of a big time prospect and a really good up and coming coach, or it's a really good addition to your staff, or whatever the scenarios may be, I'm sure we're going to see more situations like that. And you know what? If you can get it, go do your thing, boo-boo. Get your money. But, yeah, it's just kind of weird how secretive this is of who's offering what and from where and all that.
It is nuts. And I know that when this is like a year or two ago when we were discussing like guardrails, and some would get offended when we say that, like, get off my lawn. It's not that. And some in the chat today, I say some, there's enough of you, or in my Twitter timeline that are like, my God, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse before it might, if it ever does, possibly get better. Now, the class of 2020, some of you in the chat got this right. I thought maybe most of you would go a little bit higher than this. Max Olson checked on the 2020 quarterback class, the top 50 recruits, quarterback position. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and all three of those are gone. Carson Beck, Georgia. Garrett Green at West Virginia. Baylor got a taste of him last week. Tate Rodemaker, Xavier at Florida State, and Brady Cook at Missouri. Those are the only players who never transferred or changed after they signed with the original school from the class of 2020. Three of them are gone. They're in the NFL.
Yeah, the top three. And the fourth one will be there probably next year, unless he...
Brady Cook?
No, I was talking about Carson Beck, who's played really well. I've seen him ranked as high as 40th on some people's boards. And he was kind of not thought of 3 months ago that way. So so I think he'll probably be the number one quarterback coming out. And and we'll see. Look, if Tate Rodemaker loses to Louisville and he may not be the starter at Florida State next year, and he might transfer too. I don't think so, but you never know. So that's.
So that means if you put that list back up, Garrett, how many then are still a part? There's four then, right? Beck, Green, Rodemaker, and Cook.
Yeah.
Four. I thought there was five. A lot of you put two. Some of you put seven. Some said 10. I think Paxton and others maybe said five, but I thought five was right, but it's four. Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, we just talked yesterday, and I don't like always bringing it back to to Baylor, but they're a good example in this of the last time they signed a guy and he was actually around for his entire career was nearly 10 years ago at this point. I mean, nearly a decade where you've gone without signing a guy and seeing him all the way through to the end of his career. I mean, think about that. That's crazy. A decade has gone by where you've not had that happen. So, not surprising. I was trying to think of like who's another random team I could throw in there, but there's not a. Give another idea maybe to the sites out there that do the recruiting stuff of where you could sort by a prospect, which you can do that. And let me see the random site that I'm on. Looks like I'm on Sooners Illustrated, which is a 247 site, right? So you can look up the all-time recruits at a position, which is very handy. I wish, and it's since 2000. You can then sort them by their rank, you can sort them by their name, you can sort them by their position. I would love to see it sorted by year. That way, you just go like, this is who they signed every single year in a row, And the reason why I say that is because I was trying to see Caleb Williams transferred, Spencer Rattler transferred, like how many of them. And, Texas has got a good situation now, but you start to look, they've Cam Rising and Hudson Card and, the quarterback.
Jackson was a quarterback before,
Blake Murphy probably going to transfer, so everybody's getting dealt a hand with the quarterback, position and having to try and maintain that and keep guys on campus, but also in this era, not see a bunch of transfers, but it's pretty impossible to do that. So yeah, it's not surprising that, that list is a very short list compared to what it started out as.
Yeah. I think sometimes if you go, God, I don't like the way things are in college football, most of it, the reaction is, oh, my God, just, again, stop being an old man, get off my lawn. I actually think there are more people that feel that way than just me. I get it. I'm okay with it, but it doesn't mean I like it.
No, I think most people don't like there's different things. Like, I'm thrilled that players are making money, and I'm thrilled that the transfer portal works out for some team. I mean, you can build to the transfer portal, and I think it's good for players that aren't in the right spot, or it's good for programs that you don't have to say, like, you don't have to wait 5 years for a guy to get a full class in to be better and all those things. Those are good parts of it, but it just needs to make more sense than it does, right? It needs to be less chaotic, and however we get there is great, and part of that just needs to be sunlight. Like, just, you don't – I don't understand why people don't like that players are getting played. That one I'll never understand, because if you were a player, you would want money.
Well, it's just not even legal.
Yeah, it's just like
there's not a good argument for it in any way, shape, or form. But.
So now, how they get paid and the way that those goes about, you can feel, icky about some of the icky things that go on, absolutely. But the fact that they're getting money where they didn't before, to me, that one doesn't make sense. But yeah, the way the transfer portal works, and I think the other part of it is, there's a lot of this instant gratification that people want. They want to microwave their way, to the finished meal of their college career, and it's not always the best choice. Like, sometimes, look, okay, you didn't start at Georgia, okay, you might start at Missouri, all right? But if you didn't start at Georgia and then Missouri doesn't call and then other people don't call, then, maybe, you should have just stuck it out, and gotten what you could out of that deal. And it's different for everybody. I totally get how you feel. I don't totally love everything. I think there's good aspects to it, but I don't necessarily like the way the execution of it all goes.
Okay.
I think you can like certain things about something and not have to like all of it. Yeah, it's not black and white. I don't have to like every single type of something just because.
I love the Avengers, but I can do without Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I like the MCU movies, but I can do without about the last 10 of them. I don't need them. I don't care for them, and I don't want them. Like that. Yeah, so you don't have to unanimously approve or disprove every single thing about every single thing.
Yep.
But just in general, yeah. I mean, the non. I guess the crowd that prefers the non-NIL era, like, I can understand that, but that's just not realistic or right or going to fly anymore. And so those days are dead and gone, period. We're never returning to those days unless there is some, all academic based, like side leak. But you know what? That will not get any attention because that's not where the money is and that's not where the fans are and all of that. So, it is what it is, but I'm with you as far as, look, what would we be talking about right now? We'd be talking about championship games, and we'd be talking about recruiting, but the transfer portal stuff is super interesting. It makes the season more interesting. It makes this time of year even more interesting, even when we still have all these games left to play. So it's fascinating. I do think that a lot of times you are being told, though, by people who benefit from it of why it's so great and how you're stupid if you don't agree so, because they're directly benefiting from the subject matter. But, yeah, you can still have a problem with just how it's all done. And to me, when you're just vaguely throwing out, some school from the Big Ten's offering $500K for this Houston offensive lineman. Well, we know the Houston offensive lineman's name. Why can't we know the school's name? Why does that have to be so secret? Why does that have to be like Barry Switzer's still out there recruiting right now?
Yeah.
That's the part to me that doesn't make any sense. But that's the part that I think the schools want to, keep that way. So again, they're not competing openly with well-known offers and, all those types of issues that might arise there, or tampering or what have you. Because is the portal open yet?
No.
Yeah, so all these things we're talking
only if your coach got fired. So Max Johnson can leave A&M and go to North Carolina.
So there's the shroud of secrecy that you want. Yeah.
But if your coach didn't get fired, then the portal's not open until Sunday or Monday.
So in the case of the Houston offensive lineman, or was he an offensive lineman? Defensive lineman. That's fine. Like Holgo's gone, boom. Okay. But I do think there's a little bit too much secrecy. But whatever, it is what it is, and it's fun, it's entertaining, and it's definitely making things a lot more interesting.
All right, so there's that, and so we appreciate that. Also, I thought this was a neat note, just interesting. Bob Bowlby, former Big 12 commissioner, who, remember, ran the conference for a long time, gave it up a year and a half ago to Brett Yormark. He's back to where he started as the AD interim athletic director at Northern Iowa. This is kind of we had him on, about 2 months ago or so. It was really good to have him on the show. That's from Brett McMurphy.
I wonder how
back
long
where he was a long time ago.
I wonder, because he was very content not to do anything. I wonder how long that gig will last. How long do they think it'll be to get a new AD there for him?
I don't know. You can't go too far. You can't you just can't sit there for 6 or 8 months. Hell, he might just say, "Hey, I don't mind this at all." He lives in Dallas, so I don't know.
I just know that some places have an interim AD for a year and a half because they're waiting on a contract of the person they really want to hire, and so you're the interim AD or what or they keep it that way. I don't know. It's a weird job in that you can have an interim for quite a long time. Usually, okay, I'm the AD, I'm retiring in March, and then, there'll be an interim that gets you through the end of the school year, but the full-time person will start soon. But with ADs, it's weird. It's this staggered schedule. Sometimes, they retire, and then the next guy's there, but, I don't know.
So there you are, Northern Iowa. It's a guy that ran Northern Iowa, Stanford, obviously connections, to Iowa, I think, or Northern Iowa, then, like I just mentioned, and also the Big 12 for the longest of time. All right, so the Notre Dame. Oh, by the way, some of you have asked for me to mention this. We had the app, Sikkim 365 app, was not working for a day or two. It was a glitch. We got it fixed. For those of you asking, I also put a note up on Sikkim365.com in the premium section on that too.
A website I'll never go to anymore if I want my feelings to stay intact.
All right, so Paul had his top 5 offensive coordinators, right? And somebody took that segment. I think this might have some Garrett Ross written all over it.
I think this is Emory. This might be Emory.
Emory, and then put that up in the Sikkim.
It was Bear Force, whoever that is the one who put it up.
He put it in the premium section, and people
crapped all over me.
First of all, I didn't really see that. I just saw that they put up your top 5, and I was, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They put up segments like the Grant Tap, whatever, and your feelings are hurt.
I mean, not really, because I don't really give a crap what they think, but it was telling. And then part of it was they're mad at me because I didn't tell them, here's sunshine and rainbows in a box, and your new offensive coordinator is going to be John Gruden.
What's the beef? I don't know.
I've resurrected Don Coryell.
What was the complaint?
What's the complaint?
None of the guys I said were good enough. I don't
even remember who was on the list.
It was
Spavital,
Major Applewhite, and it was all guys who had been head coaches before. Right. Daryl Dickey, guys like that. So again, it was.
I've got to tell you this. And you do your due diligence on that. None of them tweaked me. None of them, but that doesn't mean.
I'll tell you.
And if one of them's hired as offensive coordinator, I'll tell them that too.
I promise you that nobody that Baylor's going to hire is probably going to get them fired up because it's not going to be a huge name. It's not going to be Cliff Kingsbury. It's not going to be somebody like that. It's going to be somebody who they're going to consider a medium name, and they're going to wait and see how he does. So nothing's going to make them happy, but that was the point of it.
So even Paul Christ, people were
that was one of the ones they crapped on the hardest.
Wow. Okay, and I don't know that. I don't know. I don't even know if there's discussion with that.
I based my list on parameters of these are guys. If Dave Aranda is going to be spending more time as the defensive play caller and more time in the defensive room, a former head coach who can essentially run that side of the building was a suggestion that was made as to maybe where he would go. That's not necessarily what he'll do, but I left names like Chad Morris off the list, although he could be one of the guys. I don't think so.
But go over well now.
But again, is that going to go over well? What's going to work for you? It's probably not going to work for you because you're already mad about the situation in the first place.
Yeah, I think with a guy like who's a Wisconsin guy, Paul Chris, like I don't know, just I guess on the surface of I was like no skin in the game. Was just reading that to be like, how are they going to run the football? Because they can't run the football now. Like you'd have to overhaul and go get Big Ten offensive linemen, and and like that would be hard to imagine they could do in a year to save Dave Aranda's job. So I do think it has to be, and you asked me yesterday, I really do not have a preference. I do not care who they hire. I don't care what type of offense they run, so long as it's just entertaining and not like watching paint dry, and so long as it's doable and you're not halfway through a season where your bread and butter is supposed to be running the football and your biggest weakness is that you can't run the football. Like, how do you get to that point? So long as we avoid those scenarios again, I'm all good with whoever and wherever direction that they go. Just be worth watching, entertaining, and make sense for the personnel that you have. That's all the desires that I have for it. But, yeah, I mean, there's only going to be so many names that are going to be splashy to begin with. And, that's probably a scenario where a lot of people were already – Sean Lewis gets – oh, my gosh, Sean Lewis would be amazing. And then he's a head coach now at San Diego State. So he's off the board. So, I mean, yeah, like who else would you turn to? I think Spavital obviously makes sense. Matt Wells makes a ton of sense, especially with the – I know Spavital's been a head coach as well, but Matt Wells just he's a bit longer in the tooth, seen a lot more football at this point, and obviously knows Aranda well. Those aren't super inspiring, but – I mean, Jeff Grimes wasn't like oh, my God, we got Jeff Grimes? Holy cow. I don't remember that at least.
I think there was a little bit of that because of Zach Wilson. I think there was a little bit of that because of
and look what happened with all of that.
Yeah.
So cool. You got the moment to celebrate the press conference, and look, you got the 2021 season, but I mean, are you worried about winning the press conference or are you worried about winning games?
Oh, I don't think
My answer is I want to do both. Of course you do, but
Yeah.
it's not a perfect world, so there's not a guy out there that doesn't guarantee it either.
I don't think anyone at Baylor thought he would win the press conference, but I think that the credentials of him obviously came with what he had done at BYU. And my God, in 2021, it was fantastic, but we know how it has ended.
Well, and, he did not adapt to the players on the roster that he had and kind of kept trying to run the RVO again, and it wasn't there. But the bigger issue was that they, as an offensive staff and a head coach, failed to identify people who could successfully run the wide zone.
Yeah, and I'm not done trying to figure all of that out, what went wrong. That's not just asking Dave Aranda that, because we have, but what went wrong by asking others, either who are on the staff now or who were on the staff, to kind of go, what happened? And without finger pointing, why did it fail? Is it slap, easy, targeting the personnel or talent, or was there just dysfunction among everybody that was a part of that offensive staff? Back to the college football playoff for a second. Garrett, I gave you a couple of quotes to put up. A question during the soap opera known as the college football playoff television show. Media question. There is definitely a degree of recency bias. This is on last night's poll that came out, the standings. In all the teams, how they're playing right now, and guess I asked the age-old question, the most deserving versus the four best. We've heard protocol referred to for conference champions. Can you clarify those terms and concepts that we're dealing with here? And this is all, Craig and Paul love this man, Bill Hancock. I appreciate you asking that question. It is best. Most deserving is not anything in the committee's lexicon. They are to rank the best teams in order, and that's what they do. Just keep that word in mind, best teams.
But that's not how they've ever done it. Like, and again,
why do you think I put that quote up? I wanted to get you two going.
Yeah, I mean, it's not how they've ever done it. Bill Hancock seems like a kindly old gentleman at times, but he's a lobbyist, and he says this lobby bullcrap all the time. And that's why I can't wait for the next guy to be in charge, and maybe he'll do this too, but at least, like, there'll be some kind of modicum of realism that deals with this, and not this fog of nonsense that he throws out, like they haven't screwed over teams by doing the exact opposite of this mantra. Like, that is not what they do, and for him to say that is just baffling.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. I mean, I don't really believe half of what comes out of his mouth either, but, I mean, that's his job, is to, put that out there and toe the company line. And, whether you believe him or not is up to you. But, I mean, that is what it's supposed to be. But that's not how everybody sees it. Again, going back to what we discussed earlier, if that could be how it's supposed to be. But there is going to be a number of people that feel like that it should be more of the most deserving, because then you start to, affect the viewing of the regular season as far as what matters, and you start to kind of change a whole lot of things by not going with most deserving, right? And so that's where I think there's that a little bit of a pause for some when it comes to that argument of most deserving versus for best. If it's for best, I don't know that Florida State belongs in there, but I also know that there's always people and there's a lot of politics going on, and so all I know is that's setting up so that some SEC guy can get, Alabama into the play. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much politicking that's not just his general comment. Like, there's stuff behind that comment and behind the scenes, and so, best team, most deserving. Again, that's the big argument in play, but he's saying that it's the best team. So we'll see when those final rankings come out on Sunday, and if Florida State's above Texas or above Alabama, or if Alabama beats Georgia or whoever, then you know what, he'll have to answer the. But they're just saying what they had. Like, guys, they're just saying what they got to say to get through every week.
We know that. But I wanted to bring up that quote because we've seen that in the past go back and forth along with all the other what is this week's narrative of why we put things right.
It's also why the 12-team playoff is necessary, because then you maybe get a better gauge of what that is. Or it's not always the best team. The best team doesn't always win in any playoff. Were San Diego State and UConn the best teams in college basketball last year, or were they playing the best at the right time? They were playing the best at the right time. If you look at the whole body of work for UConn, they had the whole month of January where they didn't look very much like they should be in the tournament at all, and then turned it around. If you look at, were the Rangers the best team in Major League Baseball all year long? They were one of the better teams, but their bullpen was atrocious for a long time.
Right time.
Again, if you had picked it. And that's part of this, the culture of college football is they used to not play for the national championship, just people were like this one. And so that's baked into the history and the culture of college football. So a lot of it is that's what they're doing. Like, what if the playoffs, the baseball playoffs, the Rangers wouldn't have won? You'd have been like, the Braves.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Right, so there's one. All right. So here's
TCU
another.
wouldn't have beat Michigan last year.
Yeah, exactly.
No, absolutely. All right. So here's another question. To follow up, and this is involving Texas and Alabama, and I thought the answer here that we'll have in a second was pretty simple, but not everybody would agree. I guess I'm trying to clarify the whole recency thing. Does Texas's head-to-head win against Alabama carry as much weight as it would had it happened later in the season? Does it still carry that same amount of weight even though it happened in week 2? Or does it carry less weight because it happened earlier in the season? Before you put up the answer, Garrett, what do you think the answer is from Boo Corrigan?
Well, I know what it was because I read it.
What do you think his answer was?
I'm trying to still read the question.
I'm sorry. So in other words, did the Texas-Alabama head-to-head carry more weight if it would have been played later in the year than it did back in week 2?
I have no idea what his response.
All right, here's the response, and I was like, okay, this is plain and simple. Head-to-head is head-to-head, no matter when the game is played, and that's how we look at it. Having said that, if it ends up with any of those two in the conversation, which it absolutely could, although Alabama's going to have to beat Georgia, Texas has to take care of their business. If there's any way Alabama's ahead of Texas, then he just lied.
Yeah, but head-to-head, like if they're in the same spot, then Alabama should go in ahead of Texas, or Texas should go ahead of Alabama. I'm sorry, Texas beat them, and there is that but the recency bias also applies to like sometimes like when guys are hurt or when it is like if they're hurt and they didn't win a game.
All right, well, what about Washington, Oregon having double head-to-head if they split? You eliminate both of those wins, neither one of them counts. How do you do that?
Then you have to go on
recency bias.
No, Washington would be knocked out, and Oregon would get the benefit of the Washington win because the whole argument with them and Texas is that they're so similar right now, but Texas has the best win, but then actually Oregon would have the best win because they would have just beaten a top 4 Washington.
Yep.
So the games this weekend matter a great deal.
Yeah. Which is what it should do. But so should the win against Alabama for Texas back in week 2, even if that was forever ago.
Well, and
otherwise, why play the games, as Roger said.
Exactly. Look, and Alabama is a different team now than they were then. Texas is kind of different than they were. Like, they've gone through kind of different versions of themselves all throughout the year, but they've consistently won the games, which should be the most important thing, and the style points. But, because I know that there was like the common opponent thing that came out of, Oregon only beat Tech by a touchdown, and it was close until a pick six at the end of the game, and then Texas beat them by 50. Well, yeah, I mean, but that was a long time ago. Like, the things change.
And you're right. What a team looked like in week 2, they could be better now, or they could actually have fallen on hard times, or they could be struggling.
Well,
but it still should matter that you beat a team that's in this conversation in the first place, that is in the conversation, that has a very slim, very, very slim hope of playing in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and look, if you want to start playing the, who looked best at the right time or who's win, like, oh, well, so if you beat a team that wound up losing 3 games down the stretch when they were ranked 7th, should that count then? Like, if you don't, like, that's why it gets all convoluted, because you can play this game with everybody.
Right. I mean, the Texas Tech thing is you've got, people trying to compare that. Well, they didn't even play the same freaking quarterback. It wasn't the same. They didn't play at the same spot.
Yeah.
Like, the Oregon game was in Lubbock at night. Tyler Shuck was the starting quarterback, which he won coming out of the offseason. Mm-hmm. And then Texas played them in Austin at night and against Baron Morton. So it's not apples to apples, and it was different times of the year. And yeah, I mean, I see the Oregon side of things as far as, like, there's some people that just gloss over that game and treat that like Oregon wasn't nearly beaten, and they were this close to being beaten in that game. Yeah. I mean, Tyler Shuck throws a really bad interception of his 3 interceptions on the night, and that one sealed the deal when Tech had a chance to go down there and win it. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of that, and there's, like, just very conveniently missing details depending on who's speaking,
Yep.
But, no, they're not apples to apples. It's a common opponent, but a set of common opponents. But, yeah, it's not the exact thing the way it's made to be. So you got to be careful which argument you're looking at and who's got the agenda for one way or the other, because, yeah, it's not the exact same thing.
All right, 4:51, we're not done. We have Tim Brando coming up at 5. Right now, give me, as we are today, and I know that there are games to be played, who do you think are the 4 best teams in college football today?
The 4 best?
4 most deserving.
The 4 best, I think, are Georgia, Michigan, Oregon.
Go ahead, man.
Well, he's trying to give me a second to think about it.
Look, FSU's way different without Jordan Travis, but their defense is still one of the best in the country. So I'm going to say them, but just narrowly over Texas.
Okay, Craig?
I think Georgia and Michigan are pretty clear. Best, most deserving. I mean, Washington's most deserving. I think Oregon is better right now. This very second. I don't like. It's like 40.5% to like 30 or whatever that would come back to. You know what I mean? 49-51 or whatever. Right. That's what it would be. So, yeah, 4 best right this very moment. I think it's Georgia. I think it's Michigan. I think it's Oregon. And I think it's Texas. The 4 most deserving, I think, are Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State.
Yeah. Kim Coulter, Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Texas. And we know how Tim thinks about Texas. Those are probably the 4 best. Georgia, Michigan, Texas, if they win. Oregon, Washington winner.
Yeah, I mean,
but
they're in the playoff.
Deserving. If you are a Power 5 conference and you run the table, and I know that Florida State's win against LSU seemed like, well, it's as long ago as Alabama, Texas. Mm-hmm. I still think if you run the table and then also overcome adversity, that should come into play, also a part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that Louisville has 10 wins because they need everything. They need as many stickers on the wall.
They're going to beat them, by the way. I mean, that really very much is a game that could go the wrong way for Florida State.
Oh, exactly. I fear for it every day. But if they do have 10 wins, if they do manage to win it, then I think they'll be okay.
I don't think you can penalize a team for a guy getting hurt. Like to me, that just seems. I know you can technically, but that just seems so against the spirit of the game. You know what I mean? Of like 100 guys on the team, 99 of them are still there and still doing the same thing they've been doing the entire time. But I get like the main focal point guy outside of your stud receiver is gone. That changes everything. And so, yeah, it's a huge dilemma. I'm sure the committee is very much rooting for Louisville to get the win this weekend to make their job easier. But as we've seen, and like the whole thing about just running circles with this playoff thing is they'll just come up with a way to get to where they want to go anyways. I mean, it'll be body clocks, or it'll be star quarterback injury. It'll be the head. I mean, they leave themselves a lot of off-ramps, and they really don't have to answer to anybody. They just have angry Twitter mentions, and that's really about it.
All right, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's do this. I know we got to take a break. Let's do this. If Quinn Ewers was still hurt, if McCarthy got hurt,
I mean, yeah, Ewers is not in the top 4 right now, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
But if McCarthy got hurt,
yeah,
and that
or Bo Nix got hurt,
yeah,
or Bo Nix got hurt, would we
Penix,
say
whatever.
the same thing about those programs that we are saying, or some are saying, about Jordan Travis being out at Florida State? Would we bring that up too?
I don't know, because that's what about,
No. But if you're a fan base that's saying, yeah, but they're not as good without their quarterback, which is legitimate. It's true. But if it was your team and you lost your starting quarterback, would you go, but
you're talking again about fans being rational and saying,
I'm talking about the committee needs to, the committee needs to think about that. Like, don't need to just apply it. Like, I would use that as an exercise. Like, to me, it would be a thought exercise to, if you're really going to leave what could potentially be a 13-0 conference champion out, would you do the same thing if it was Michigan or Georgia? So,
but we're acting like Florida State's not some big blue blood either. It's not like this is Tulane getting the screw job here, or Texas Tech or something. I mean, it's Florida State, so it's not like they're going to suffer from TV ratings, dilemmas if they don't put, or that they were to get in. There's not that concern with them. So this is a blue. I mean, that's what's fascinating about it, is that they are choosing.
That's what I love
between
about it.
blue bloods, basically. I don't know if I consider Oregon that or Washington that necessarily, but I guess there's an argument that could be. That's a touchy offseason topic that you get into.
They're on the front lawn, but maybe not in the clubhouse.
Right, but they're still a very popular brand. So from that from like a brand standpoint, they are blue blood at this stage. But yeah, it's not like this is just some school. It's a big school in Florida State. So yeah, I think that if you're the committee, you're rooting for Louisville to win this weekend and make your job hopefully a lot easier. But there's a lot of other, the Alabama dilemma, the Texas dilemma. It's going to be a wild weekend.
I want to see a blue blood or two, and I don't care which one it is. I want to see them like, well, wait a minute. What about, all right, deserved, best, or earned?
And we already saw this too with Ohio State, and they had a backup quarterback, and they got in just fine.
And they won.
Yeah, and they won the entire title, and their third-string quarterback. So we've already seen them give the benefit of the doubt there. But they also, I understand, blew out Wisconsin in the conference championship game. You were really not wanting TCU or Baylor in the playoff back at that time. There was that situation where, had that been a bigger school, then it would have been interesting to see. But because you're like, oh, their commissioner's saying they're tied, basically? Yeah. Okay, well, shoot. Well, that's easy. Ohio State gets in, and that was not much of a problem for them.
All right, we break. We come back. Tim Brando will join us, Fox Sports, on a lot of these same questions. This is 365 Sports.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family, full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread and cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Tim Brando, Fox Sports, will join us momentarily. When he is ready, we will be ready. Also, I had a conversation earlier today with Baylor men's basketball coach Scott Drew. They're 7-0, but December has Seton Hall, Michigan State, and Duke on their schedule. He actually today was recording a podcast with Mike Krzyzewski, former Duke great, and so there we are with that. Back for a second while we tread water a little bit here with the Big 12 championship game Saturday morning at AT&T Stadium. Texas a 2-touchdown favorite. Craig, we knew about some of the entertainment, the WWE and Nelly and all of that other stuff. We discussed that when that was announced. How much will the WWE be a hot thing for those who are in attendance, in your opinion?
I mean, if you like that sort of thing, then I think you'll appreciate it. If you don't, then maybe there's some folks, especially younger kids, that maybe see some of the people in attendance and they are, wowed, and they're like, "Who's that? Who's Drew McIntyre? I got to go watch Monday Night Raw." I mean, I think that's the hope if you're WWE. You also are just going to have your logo splattered all over the place while, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever million, number of people end up watching this game, which I imagine will be a big number because it's sold out, by the way. They announced that. Standing room only. There's I guess they're going to have some special standing, area tickets available. So kudos to both fan bases. I'm curious to see what that split is. I know it was very heavy Oklahoma State when they played Baylor a couple years ago. But yeah, I mean, this is a nice cross promotional thing. It's not going to see a big uptick in WWE Monday Night Raw or SmackDown ratings, but maybe it makes some new fans, and especially younger fans that grow up and become WWE fans. And for the conference, like it's like I mentioned to Michael Cole, there's a couple million people, 1.5 million people watching Raw the other night, and he's talking about the Big 12 coming out of a commercial break, and otherwise nobody's thinking of the Big 12 or paying attention to the Big 12 in some cases. It's not, major crossover necessarily. So I don't know. I just think it's something unique to do. Try to draw some more eyeballs and just do something a little bit different. That's all I've really ever seen it as. I don't really understand those that, well, it's not like they're going to get 2 million. Well, yeah, they're not going to get 2 million new fans out of this. I don't think anybody's that stupid to think that they would otherwise, but it's just something different and interesting. And I'm not somebody who puts my nose in the air when it comes to pro wrestling. So to me, it's just kind of cool to see it, but it's not a huge deal either. But I've definitely seen a fair share of people who are just totally put off by it, which I don't really understand that. I think you're taking things a little bit too seriously, honestly.
All right. There is, Paul, top 5 Nelly songs.
Hot in Here.
Now, speaking of that.
Just give me the Country Grammar album.
Yeah, Country.
Speaking of which, both the Texas band and the Oklahoma State bands will be very much involved in that song with Nelly. It's Getting Hot in Here.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be everybody's favorite.
You want me to go over what's actually going on here, like as far as the Nelly and all that? So Nelly's going to perform first ever halftime show with the Oklahoma State and Texas marching bands, and they're going to do a performance of Hot in Here. So yeah, probably his biggest song, I would think, and that's going to be, probably fun for those bands to perform with Nelly, I would think. But that's going to be something interesting.
But if you had always wondered, I wonder what this would sound like with a bunch of tubas and trombones behind it. You'll finally get to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. They're also going to have national anthem, country music singer, former NCAA student athlete Warren Zeiders, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. A pre-championship concert featuring Wade Bowen, Waco's own, right?
That's right.
But a Red Raider as well, I believe.
And one of the best voices. I've seen Wade Bowen live a few times. He is a voice, man.
I think he has played in Kim Coulter's backyard in Scottsdale in that area.
Yeah. Well, there will be a pre-championship concert featuring Wade Bowen on Friday. So you've got the national anthem with Warren Zeiders, and again, no disrespect, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Pre-championship concert on Friday with Wade Bowen. There will also be in-game music from DJ Poison Ivy, and Hannah Wing will serve as the in-game host. Like, we're getting to a lot of particulars here that most of us probably don't, care too much about or know too much about. But the WWE thing is saying they're going to have the custom-made title belt for the most outstanding player, which I think that's cool. Like, I don't know why that's not cool, other than you just don't like wrestling. I think, if you're the most outstanding player and you've got, The Undertaker giving you a custom belt, I think that's pretty rad.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Awesome. So, I'm not even a wrestling fan outside of my youth, right? I've become more interested because I've been working with you for so long, but I'm telling you right now, if The Undertaker or John Cena or one of those guys came and handed me the belt, I would think that was the coolest thing that had ever happened to me in my life.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and you know what? The Undertaker will be there. So if Texas wins, he's a big Texas fan. Mm-hmm. So for him to give Quinn Ewers the most outstanding player belt, I mean, any Longhorn fan that doesn't like it now will be eating that up on Saturday afternoon. But they're going to have some of that co-branding, like the logo and stuff. I don't know how much I love that, and I guess it remains to be seen how visible that will be. But it's going to be apparently all throughout the venue. But that's cool. Whatever. Limited edition. There'll be some T-shirts that are the limited edition. Let's see. WWE talent present: Undertaker, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Jade Cargill, and WWE announcer Samantha Irvin, who does a really good job. They will be there. Additionally, superstars Ricochet, Raquel Rodriguez will be doing stuff with the YMCA meet and greet and things like that. So a lot of community service stuff. And so, hey, community service also getting involved here. Good. So that's not a bad deal at all.
That's good.
Yeah.
Question on the is that good? Is it?
Yeah, that's just the names that were mentioned.
In the chat room about why aren't more former coaches on the college football playoff committee? The other part of the question, I'm going to give you those who have been, is why not a Joel Klatt or an RG3 or whoever? You cannot be a media member and be on the college football playoff committee. You just can't be, because there's a lot of connections as well with what networks have, what bowl games, etc. So you have to separate yourself from that. Barry Alvarez, Wisconsin. Gary Barta, no, he's an AD. Frank Beamer's been a part of it. Lloyd Carr has been a part of it.
R.C. Slocum.
Ken Hatfield has been a part of it. R.C. Slocum has been a part of it. There are former players, Ronnie Lott, Archie Manning have been a part of it. Tom Osborne, a part of it. Let's see. Scott Strickland. No, he's an AD. And Tyrone Willingham, former Stanford, Notre Dame, and Washington head coach.
And this year's committee doesn't have as many as Jim Grobe is on the committee.
Groby.
One of the best.
Will Shields, a former offensive lineman, is a part of it. Slocum.
Chris Alt, who used to be the former head coach at Nevada, he's on. And let's see. Most of the rest are ADs.
Yeah, and that's a question at UT Park. Why are they more administrators, et cetera? And some ADs have been coaches before, back in the day, but it's a good question. But there have been former coaches,
and they have people from the outside as well.
Jim Grobe, that always will be one of my favorite ever in college football for the time that he spent the year here as Baylor's head coach in 2016.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, it would be a conflict of interest with current guys. So, I guess that's the best way to do it is with retired coaches and current ADs. And I guess with ADs, at least there's some level of culpability. Like you can't really afford in that profession to like screw job somebody else because that's going to come back and get you at some point. But yeah, there's probably as we're changing everything, look at that a little deeper and say, how could we tweak this as well? That probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
And maybe they do. We're now joined, here we go, with Truth Serum. Tim Brando, Fox Sports. He's now made that pivot towards college basketball. He joins us, though, because of heavy college football. What a time of the year. Tim, thank you so much. Great to have you back on the show. So how many different narratives do you see as we get to the final week coming up with the college football playoff standings that were released last night?
Well, we can start with the Southeastern Conference is going to be really pissed, I think, more than likely in the aftermath of this, because it doesn't appear that the committee is looking towards dropping Florida State at all if they take care of business against Louisville. That's a desperate. I mean, listen, they need Texas to lose and Florida State to lose. Can it happen? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it can. And it's happened before. I mean, lightning has struck on a couple of occasions, both during the BCS when West Virginia couldn't take care of business against Shady McCoy and Dave Wannstedt's team back in 2007, and LSU jumped from 7 to 2 during the BCS era and won a national title with two losses, and one of those a double overtime loss to Arkansas the final week of the regular season. But I mean, this notion that and narrative that's coming out of the Southeastern Conference, it's obvious they're hanging on. I mean, this notion that Alabama, if it beats Georgia, is a lock. No, they're not a lock. Georgia needs to win for the SEC to be a lock. And, the Washington-Oregon winner, based on, the metrics we're looking at now, I mean, that winner looks like it's in, whether it's Oregon with one loss or Washington undefeated. And, Michigan and Iowa, two bets there, Michigan to win and take the under. and I think if you look at the ACC, I don't know that. I mean, maybe Louisville can pull a rabbit out of a hat. Jeff Brom's a really good coach, and they got spanked in a game that they were not supposed to lose. And maybe they'll be angry, come out and take it out on Florida State without their quarterback because they're not the same team. That one is a little bit surprising to me. I jumped Oregon over Florida State, even with a loss in my top 10 last week, because I just think they're a far superior football team. So, but I mean, obviously Washington and Oregon will eliminate one or the other. And either way, the idea or the concept that, that Alabama especially can jump from 8 to the top 4, boy, that's a wild reach right there. But you know how they are down there, man. They think it's their God-given right. How dare you keep them out twice once for TCU and then again for Florida State. Further proof of why we need to have an expanded playoff right now. We could argue forever, and I would just tell you that all 8 teams, all the top 8, has a reasonable opinion that they could win it all. And it's just a damn shame that we can't go to a 12-team format right now, because it'd be a lot of fun. But it'll whet the appetite for next year.
Yeah, Tim, I think you make it. That's a good point. Of like, we now, like, this after Sunday, we don't have to worry about like gnashing our teeth over this fourth thing anymore. It's over. It's done, and it maybe proves the point of like where college football is going, is that free agency has given it parity, Tim. Nobody is necessarily running away with this thing anymore like they have in the past, and that's only going to continue to move down the parity side as opposed to the 10-year dynasty side because of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. So we better get used to it and enjoy it now, because it's going to be like this pretty much from here on out as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and these games, people will say, well, the SEC and the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are not the Pac-12 because they won't be here, but all these title games, they won't mean anything. The hell they won't. They'll mean positioning. Mm-hmm. Next year it'll mean whether you get a bye or not, and who gets a home game for the first round between seeds 5 and 8. So they do matter. But the last half of the regular season, and particularly the last month, the November to remember, is just going to be dynamite. We had Oklahoma at TCU on Friday of last week. Oklahoma, if we had a 12-team format, would have been playing for positioning just to get in. And they would have been well positioned with that win and would have been getting in. So all these games will take on so much more importance when we get there, and that's what's going to be so fantastic about it. I know there's earth-shattering news about, what a quarterback costs in the portal. I saw what Matt Rule had to say about the going price, but this is the world we're in, and there's nothing that's going to change that. And I think it actually is going to make for a much more entertaining and better college football season. And the ratings will tell you that more people are watching now than ever before. 19 million for Michigan, Ohio State, a meaningless game in the snow between Iowa State and K-State. We had over 3.3 million viewers to that game, and it meant really nothing. Well, it would mean something to Kansas State if we were talking about 16 teams or if we were talking about 12 teams, but it didn't. The sport's in great shape. We just have to begin to regulate it, and we need to get the NCAA the hell out of it altogether.
Tim, I know what Boo Corrigan said, and I know what the committee says, but your personal preference, are you a 4 best teams or a 4 most deserving guy?
Oh, I think that the quest to get the 4 best sounds a lot better, don't you?
Yeah,
it does. But you can't tell me that the committee hasn't already shown in the last few years that most deserving has begun to matter. It certainly did when Cincinnati got in a few years back as the first so-called group of 5 team. TCU lost its title game to Kansas State and still got in last season. And I think they got in on the basis of really controlling much of college football's significance the last 8 weeks of the regular season. So deserving is in the minds of the beholder. It's in the minds of the committee. I do think that that'll change again once we go to 12. I think the only thing they're going to find out when they go to 12, fellas, is that, oh my God, why didn't we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 play the first week? You know what? We're going to do that in the next TV deal. They don't get a bye. We're going to make them play at home. That's what's going to happen in 26.
Tim, someone in the chat room, UT Parking, and we got a lot of fans from all the various fan bases, even those who are not a part of this, asked about the College Football Playoff Committee, why there weren't more coaches on it. And I mentioned that there's been a few, and there's still a lot. But why no one in the media? And I mentioned that you just can't be a part of that process. But the media, and I'm fortunate, I know you are too, we do have a Heisman vote. What's the difference?
Well, I think the Heisman vote has always been considered regionally biased, so it's accepted to have media. But when it comes to the college football playoff and then the BCS, one of the reasons why we had too many computer polls in the BCS when it began was because Roy Kramer was concerned that the people running the computers would be biased, so we had to have too many of them, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole regionally biased thing comes into play with who they're putting on the committee. You know, which athletic director from what team and what conference and so on. You know, I remember the first year of the college football playoff in 2014. It was major news when a committee member was drafted, when we brought someone in. Remember the buzz when Condoleezza Rice was part of that committee? Remember the buzz when Archie Manning was part of it? And then Archie wound up giving up his because of his surgeries that he was going to have. He couldn't come in and make those airplane trips that particular year. And I could tell you, he really was telling the truth. He was about to have knee replacement. It was going to be pretty painful for him. But we don't scrutinize the committee anymore. Okay, we really stopped it after the second or third year. Nobody really cared. It was like, oh, all right, well, whoever they got, they'll do the best job possible. I mean, it was news when Tyrone Willingham was on the committee the first time, when Tom Osborne was on the committee. You knew about it. And I think that since people stopped caring, we've seen a steady influx of more college administrators rather than coaches being involved. Now, those coaches that are there, they do carry a pretty big stick in that room. They have the attention of those that didn't coach. But that committee looks a hell of a lot more like an NCAA tournament selection committee than it does, a blue ribbon panel of college football experts. And I think that's where the rub with so many comes from. I got a real kick out of watching those guys have their debate last night for the last time on ESPN. I've always said Reese Davis deserves the Purple Heart because trying to make those Tuesday interviews, whether it's with Boo or whoever the committee chair is almost nonsensical. The responses are canned, and you know that they are. But then McElroy and Galloway going at it. And I don't think Michigan State in 15 should have been there in 16. Basically it comes down to, and I like Greg, I do, but these conversations are just fruitless. And they're spending 20, 30 minutes of extra time discussing something that cannot be solved or fixed. As long as you have 4 teams, it was going to be screwed up. And they should have known that before they went to it. They should have known that a playoff means more than 4 teams, okay? That you've got to have at least 8 or more to constitute a playoff. And I would argue to anybody that's saying, well, Alabama has played so much better than Texas since they lost that game in September. And, that's the major argument down south as well. I mean, how good is Texas since then? How good is Bama now? They've really improved. And there's certainly some merit to that argument. But when you go into a playoff with 12 or more teams, you're going to see on the field which teams evolved. It's not in your mind. It's not in your imagination. I wonder if this team really is that much better. No, you're going to see it play out on the field. That's the way it should be done. Okay, not in the court of our own biased minds. And there is a level of bias in all of us. We do our best to divorce ourselves from it, particularly when we're working in television. And I know that's what I do, is exercise all bias demons before I say, hello, everyone, I'm Tim Brando alongside Spencer Tillman. That's the way we have to roll in TV. But there's a level of that within all of us. And again, as I said, those Tuesday shows were a colossal mistake, but one that the CFP wanted. They forced ESPN to do that. And, to me, until we get towards the end, they're not worth watching. And then when they are, you can tell they're filling 30 minutes with a bunch of gobbledygook, conversation that really doesn't matter in the mainstream. It's filling time because they got to get the show to an hour in length, I guess.
Yeah, give me 2 shows. Last Tuesday and then the last one. That's all I need. That's all I need.
That's all you need.
Just give me 2.
That's all you need.
Just give me 2 so I know where you're kind of at as you've gone through this. The other thing, Tim, you mentioned about the evolution of teams. I also think that there's a misnomer among a lot of people, or a misthought in it, that it's linear, that you're either going up or going down all year long, when really, depending on who you are, it's like this. And so, you could have a down stretch and then go up, and another down stretch and go up. But if you keep winning, all that doesn't matter until you actually get to the playoffs, and then the head-to-head will show you, are you on the down part of your season or the up part?
Yeah, absolutely. By example, I think Michigan, for the first 7-8 weeks, was by far and away the most dominant team. I think their margin of victory was plus 33, something like that, going into week 8 or week 9 of the season. And then they had a tough stretch. Didn't play very well offensively against Penn State. McCarthy's numbers really fell off. Didn't throw a pass in the second half of the game, and yet came away with a win. And Ohio State, meanwhile, looked from a defensive standpoint to be getting as good, if not maybe better, than Michigan. So much so that because of that and their schedule up front that included Notre Dame, they went ahead of Michigan in the CFP standings when they came out. I think a lot of people bought into that. I bought into that. But it didn't mean that Michigan wasn't going to respond, or that when the level of competition ramped up, that they would not be up to the challenge. They clearly were. And Washington, similar story. They were dominating people. Then they had that hiccup at home against Arizona State, from which I don't think they recovered for at least 2 or 3 weeks. They damn near lost to Stanford in a game Spencer and I had a few weeks later, and they got past that. And then you saw what they were able to do at Oregon State in filthy weather and at Reser Stadium, and that's a tough place to play. And they dominated that game. The score probably would have been a larger margin had it not been for the bad weather. But to me, Oregon right now looks like the best team in college football, yet they've got 1 loss, and unless they beat Washington, will be on the outside looking in. But yeah, there's ebb and flow to every season in college football. We just haven't had to pay attention for years. Neither have these analysts, because they all have their own agendas. And absolutely, there are guys that are in my profession that haven't seen certain teams at all. Okay, and you have to take that into consideration. You have to take stock in that. I didn't give Georgia its due because I couldn't unsee the Auburn game at the beginning of the year. I thought, my God, they are struggling with Auburn. Now, they lost Brock Bowers, their tight end, in that game. They had receivers, McConkey and a few others were out for that game. And you saw how Georgia responded in the aftermath of it. Meanwhile, you can make a case that Alabama had a much tougher time with Auburn than Georgia did. Okay, but so where do we go with that? It's about ebb and flow. And ultimately, that's why we have to have, in my view, the top 12 and soon after the top 16 play it out on the field. We don't need a group of people in a room, whether it's 13 or 20 or 6, telling us which teams deserve or which teams are best. Back to your initial question. Am I a deserve or best? I'm a let's get that part of it and that part of it out of the mix. So we decided on the field, and that's what we're going to do.
Tim, the carousel has been hot and heavy, not as much as last year. Last year and the last couple of years really have been bonkers. This one's a little bit it's still crazy, but not totally nuts. We did see, however,
Petrino back to Arkansas.
Well, okay, you're right. That's a little nuts. You're right. That's a little nuts.
That's a little nuts.
Yeah, just not as many big jobs as there were maybe a couple years ago. But let's start off with Mike Elko and Texas A&M, and we can kind of maneuver our way down if the other fellows want to do that as well. But this looked like it was going to be Mark Stoops there for just a second, and then it wasn't, and that's all going to be debated about what actually went on there. But your thoughts on Mike Elko and the Aggies and now moving forward as a program?
Well, I think they in the end won out. They got a good guy, and I think Mike Elko will do a really good job there. He certainly understands the place. He knows what he's getting into. I think that the whole Stoops thing was just Jimmy Sexton once again playing the athletic director, playing Ross Bjork like a Stradivarius. I mean, that's what that was. And it happens all the time in the SEC. Every job that opens up, you can pretty much guess 75 to 80% of the time it'll be a Sexton guy that gets it. And he may know they may know that they've got their man long before it's in the media, or they can talk about a national search. It's not a national search. It's Sexton on the phone with the AD. Which one of your guys can I get? He lets them know, and then they try to play it out. And I think there was probably from Mark's point of view, in the aftermath of some difficult losses, a need to get a little bit of a shot in the arm, and Sexton was able to give that to him, and with the A&M offer. And so we played around with it for a day or so, and then ultimately Elko got the job. I think he was really the better guy to have in the first place, and maybe Ross Bjork knew that, but they still let it play out.
Tim, you have a Heisman vote. I'm fortunate as well. I know we can't discuss that. Is this one of the I am not doing anything until after all the games are played this weekend, and I never would. But is this one of those that is in the balance, in your opinion?
That's another thing that's been going on that kind of blows me away. Okay, the cheerleading taking place from one portion of the country to another portion of the country. To me, and I've told my friends in Louisiana that this have been after me left and right. Yeah, Brando, it's got to be Jaden Daniels. It's got to be. Come on, Al. Look at the stats. Come on, Brando. Come on. And I'm like, look, you can't tell me that Jaden Daniels is not hampered by not playing this weekend. He absolutely is. But that hasn't kept the SEC from really hammering away on these numbers and having their people on their network hammering away on these numbers. I saw Chris Doering on the air the other day. I saw a clip of it. Just, hey, you don't need to worry about the games. Just go ahead. Voting is available now on Monday. Just go ahead and put your vote in. Jaden Daniels is the guy. It's a Florida guy, pumping up the LSU quarterback. And look, if that's your opinion, go right ahead. But I'll never vote until after the final gun of the final game in college football. And I do believe that Heisman moments now in today's internet world, we're not filling it out on putting it in an envelope and sending it. We are doing it via the internet. And I think that if Bo Nix or Michael Penix has an unbelievable game in that matchup, so much so that you just cannot take your eyes off of it, and it's just one great moment after another, I think one of those two guys is going to win it. I've told all my friends that have been after me, I've said, listen, Daniels is going to be invited. You don't have to worry about that. Does he deserve it just based on numbers? You can make a really good case for that. He has, to the quarterback position, he's done the same thing Barry Sanders did from the running back position, and sort of coming from nowhere to win it in 1988 when Troy Aikman and Rodney Peete were the two guys that everyone thought were vying for the Heisman from the start of the year all the way through. Barry's numbers were just astronomical, and they kept building over the year. And he didn't have a game nationally televised except on cable on ESPN in '88. I was hosting Game Day back then. And oh, by the way, there was a Game Day in '87 and '88. It didn't start in '93. Okay, for those of you that are just curious, there was a Game Day with Brando, Bino, and Corso in 1987. So I'm all for the putting that, the headgear on. I love Corso. I love Herbie and what Chris and Reese and those guys did for game day, making it an iconic show. That they're to be congratulated. The show was on in 1987, and we did some pretty good things back then too. But those years, Tim Brown won it in 87. He had 3 games on ESPN, including a 2 punt return game on Michigan State that year, and he wrapped it up. And then the following year, Barry Sanders snuck in and stole it with his only game nationally televised on ESPN against Barry Switzer in Oklahoma. By the way, Oklahoma won the game, but Barry went for like 246 yards in that game. So the numbers can win you the award, whether you're a running back or a quarterback. I think if the Oregon-Washington game is competitive and neither one of the quarterbacks takes over and dominates the game, then I think Jaden Daniels can win it. But not being able to play that day is going to be to his detriment. So if there's a lasting impression made by either of those 2 quarterbacks, then I think that the best player on the best team, which has been the trend of late, best player on the best team wins it. So we'll see.
Tim, you know Jonathan Smith pretty well. You've called a lot of Pac-12 games. He's on his way to Michigan State. I personally, I think that's probably going to be the best hire in the cycle.
Oof,
he's just
great hire.
He is up and coming, and they've lost all 3 of their quarterbacks, but I don't think that matters to Jonathan Smith. He's just going to. But your thoughts on him fitting in there in East Lansing?
Oh, he'll bring a real jolt to East Lansing. Superb offensive mind, understands the game in every respect. He's very hands-on. He'll have a really quality defense. That's another thing. As a former quarterback, you think about great quarterbacks, and he was one at Oregon State with Dennis Erickson, and then later went and worked with Coach Peterson at Washington, at UW, with Browner and those guys when they were last in the CFP. He was, as an offensive guy goes, name another offensive-minded head coach that has had defenses as good as Jonathan Smith. I can't think of one.
Yeah.
Certainly it's not Lincoln. We can go on and on about offensive-minded coaches that don't have the kind of defense to match, to have championship caliber. Jonathan, in my opinion, did that. Oregon State's defense carried them this year. Louis Angelale was okay, but he wasn't great. That offense, basically was getting it done on the ground more so than in the air. They didn't have a great bevy of receivers. I thought that was the difference in their game with Oregon, and it was the difference in their game with Washington. Washington's got those 3 outstanding, 2 of them are first rounders. Another one will be drafted on that team. So Jonathan was a great hire for Michigan State, and they will rebound quickly with him in East Lansing.
Tim, you're about to pivot to basketball.
Yeah.
Looking back at your sledgehammer of a schedule with you and Spencer, how much of that, you can go right into basketball, but how much of that did you need, if any kind of decompression, even though I know you love what you do and want to do it every day?
Well, I will get to decompress after 2 weeks of hoops. They got a couple of big games. Wisconsin and Marquette's a hell of a game. Marquette's number 4 in the country, and the battle for Wisconsin is always a big deal. And I'll be with Raft on Saturday at 11:30 Central, and that'll precede the Mountain West Championship and then the Big Ten title games on Fox. And then the following week, Raft and I are going to be at Villanova at Wells Fargo when UCLA comes in. That's a big Saturday night primetime game to have. And then I'll get my time to decompress between the 9th and the 30th. I'm going to come down for a women's game. Baylor, by the way, your Baylor Lady Bears at Texas on December the 30th. I'll have that game, and I'm really looking forward to it. But that time between the 10th and the 29th, that's a good almost 3 weeks to decompress. I'll be honest with you, fellas. It would have been nice to have had a championship game as we've had in the past, Spencer and myself.
Yeah. Last
year we were in Fresno, and 2 years back I did the Pac-12 championship out in Santa Clara. It's tough. I would probably be a little disappointed if I weren't working with Raft in a big basketball game on Saturday, because I'd be at home going, gosh, I ought to be there. I wish I was there. So it probably helps me to be working in hoops right then and there. But the decompression time is important, and I'll get it during the holidays, and then hit hard and begin to roll. And I think I told you guys before, with this new Big 12 agreement, I think it's not next year but the year after, I'll be coming to your place for Big 12 basketball too, in addition to the Big East and the Big 10. So I'm looking forward to that too.
We will love to have you in our studio too, Craig. Go ahead.
A new arena for Baylor.
the pavilion. Yeah, the new arena, the Foster Pavilion. Tim, I know that we interrupted your babysitting duties. Appreciate you still having time for us as always. Do not get too far away. We will have you back again soon with all that we still have in college football.
Well, happy to do it, fellas, anytime. And I managed to get some of the drool off my shoulder.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Love your time with us. Tim Brando, Fox Sports, with us on 365 Sports. We appreciate his time as always.
I know we have to go and get right to Scott Drew after this break, but Stanford running back E.J. Smith, whose dad is Emmitt Smith, is in the portal, and I'm going to tell you, I've got easy money on where he's probably going to wind up.
Florida?
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, on the Riley Leonard story, go ahead, Craig.
He didn't have a great year compared to last year. I don't know what all was in play as far as that goes. But yeah, he's a Texas guy. But yeah, Florida would seem to make a heck of a lot of sense given the pedigree there and the background there. So yeah, that's interesting.
I'll never forget. He was at Jesuit High School in Dallas, and they played Longview in the postseason, early in the postseason, and he was unbelievably good. Not Emmitt Smith good, but that's not fair to say that, but he was really, really good. That's a guy who's going to give somebody some carries and some also a durability too.
I know we're running here, but speaking of Emmitt Smith, have y'all seen the Barry Sanders documentary?
I've
heard rave reviews about this.
I can't wait to watch it.
Okay, I was curious about that. I can talk about it off the radar tomorrow.
Eminem's in it.
Hey, Riley Leonard, remember what I said about some that had him going to Notre Dame, which may be the case? Why would he not look at Elko at A&M?
Well, I think they've got Connor Wigman, although they were rumored about Cam Ward. Maybe that's true. Auburn's been rumored, but yeah.
All right, just a thought. All right, when we come back, my conversation with Baylor men's basketball coach Scott Drew. He had, again, it was on a podcast with Coach K earlier. We discussed that and more. This is 365 Sports.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Don't miss out on our biggest deals of the year during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adventure, style, and comfort of the new 2023 Jeep lineup, including the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Gladiator, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. Jeep SUVs are known for their versatility from daily commuting to outdoor adventures. Hurry in and take advantage of these Black Friday deals today and start your Jeep adventure. Shop our great selections of new inventory in-store or online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8300. 302.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is 365 Sports. Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com. I'm David Smoak. And how about the success of your auction? So good, right? With all of your great product, your aged Wagyu and more, that you're going to do something similar at the early part of December.
Yeah, so we had such a good auction that we feel like we found a different way to sell our beef. So on December 1st, we're going to do a silent auction, and it's going to be all online at cci.live. And it's going to last from December 1st to December 3rd. And we're calling it the Silent Night Auction with 12 different lots for the 12 days of Christmas. We'll have all of the information online at TexasBeefHouse.com.
TexasBeefHouse.com. Again, this is aged Wagyu beef and so much more. And this, Samantha, is going to be for the steaks. Is that correct?
Yes. It'll all be for different packages that are full of steak, skirt steak, flap steak, flat iron. It's going to be a variety. That way it's kind of like a Christmas package. All of our hamburger and sausage are still available online. And you can use gift cards, not only online, but you'll also be able to use them for the auction.
So once again, TexasBeefHouse.com. Such an incredible auction that he experienced. And now again, Samantha, starts December 1st for 3 days. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we can't wait for y'all to see how this one's going to go.
I can't wait. The steaks are amazing. They are delicious, mouth-watering delicious. TexasBeefHouse.com. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Baylor men's basketball coach, national championship head coach Scott Drew with us, 365 Sports. When I say national championship coach, I know that you're worried about like the next game. That's pretty darn impressive to be able to have that attached to you. What does that mean?
It means that we accomplished something that's really rare. And when I say we, it's a team effort. So all the Baylor family in Central Texas should feel a lot of pride in that. And that's what excites me most about it.
Scott, how hard or is it difficult to keep the culture of what you work so hard to get to and maintain that and even excel even more at it?
Nothing's easy in life. And every day that you achieve something, then obviously expectations grow for what's next. And that's the same thing in coaching. So the last 5 years, we've been the winningest Power 5 program in the country. And we've had a chance to win the last game, meaning a talented enough team to do that, but doesn't always guarantee you are going to do that. The challenge and excitement that goes in that, and so blessed to have a great staff administration that's allowed us to bring in great players to compete for championships. But again, you can't control injuries, you can't control chemistry sometimes, or leadership, and some nights you have an off night. So it's really hard to win a championship because you've got to be on for 6 games, and you got to be on during the regular season to put yourself in a position to be in the win the 6 games. It's never best of 7, so it's not the best team wins. It's who's the best team for 40 minutes wins. So you put all that together. That's why it's so hard to win a championship. At the same time, we've had opportunities for the last 5 years, which is great.
To be in the non-conference schedule that you have, which has always been a battering ram, and then, of course, it goes up a level because every night in the Big 12, and including now incoming schools, even more of a battering ram, a war of attrition, so to speak, and then, of course, tournament play. How would you compare that to something outside of basketball that every single day and night is going to be tough?
For people that like to run a marathon,
there you go.
Getting up and running a marathon the next day.
Yep.
But I can tell you, I know Matt Roberts put this in our game notes. Bryce Cherry wrote about it. And, our staff was really excited this morning to learn that the last 3 out of 4 Novembers we've been undefeated. So at least with the tough schedule, we've started out in a great manner and a position to allow you to. You always divide season, non-conference, conference, Big 12 tournament, and then postseason. And each step of the way, if you're successful, allows you to get that postseason win.
Do you still carry that little white piece of paper while you're on the sideline or courtside?
Actually, those are note cards with all kinds of notes, plays, offense, defense, everything. So, football is a lot more complicated. So I think theirs is 8.5 by 11. Us basketball coaches a lot simpler.
Yeah, theirs is all laminated, hanging from their jacket.
Yeah.
I mean, if a big gust of wind ever hit, it would take the coach in the air with the laminated. And I do that when I have a spotter board for the game. So are those just are those trends, analytics, or anything in particular that you put on those cards?
Honestly, it's everything. Plays for each position, plays for each player, defenses, lineups, depending on moments, up, down, win. So the only thing is the older I get, the harder it is to read my writing because there's that thing called reading glasses. So anyway, but I'm one of those guys that's got to write it down to remember it, and then that does help prep me for each game. I know.
So earlier today, you were on Coach K's podcast. The respect level that he has for you, and the respect level you, of course, have for him, and what he has for your family. How much has that meant to you?
It's meant a lot, and literally because a lot of the things that we do and incorporate, he's helped with, meaning either reading books, watching clinics, or listening to speeches, or just talking to him one-on-one. I remember once we won a championship, I reached out to several coaches, and him being one of them, to find out what the recommendation was for the next year. And I joked with him on the podcast that when we were 15-0, and then we had, remember, 3 season-ending injuries, he joked with me, part of the advice was don't have 3 season-ending injuries.
Yeah, there you go. Throughout your career, when you've had others, how much change, and it's not like you pay attention to this, but you have to understand it and know it's there, recognize it. How much change have you kind of felt from the basketball community as far as head coaches who have been around quite a bit on what they think of you as a basketball coach?
First and foremost, the longer you're in a profession, the more that you get to know people, and normally the better you know people, you find a common bond, and as those relationships grow, obviously people talk more highly of their friends. I think at the same time, and this is one thing when you're building a program, I remember the first year that I think every conference team, the year that we didn't have a conference season, it was like almost every game that we won in conference, that coach lost their job. I wouldn't like me either, and then you get to a point where when you play Baylor University, if you lose, you're not getting killed or fired over it. It makes it easier to like that guy as well. So I think there's some validity in that too. And all of that goes as a compliment to Baylor University and what program we've been able to build. So, and I take great pride in being a part of that.
Scott Drew with us on 365 Sports. Your December, you've got Seton Hall. Not that you don't have others. Seton Hall, Michigan State, and there's Duke. Coach K's obviously programmed for many, many years. You're 7-0. You're rolling. Do you then, after that run, will you know exactly who you are as a basketball team, or is that always a progress or in progress?
You know, that's what's great about sports. It's always ever moving. And what I mean by that is one game, one player will like Langston last game was 23 points on 10 shots. Is Langston a great player? Yes. But will he do that every game? I don't know. That's pretty hard to do. So my point is some players go through streaks where they're really on fire. Other times there might be players slumping. You might have injuries. You might have illnesses, but it's always changing. I mean, typically you have a big win and then a lot of teams are satisfied and then have a tough loss, So like our depth and balance hopefully allows us to be consistent. But it is really each and every year we equate it to climbing a mountain. And our goal as a staff is to get as high as we can with maximize the talent and abilities God's given us with each and every team. And however high that takes us, our goal is just to reach that level. To
compile a roster, you and I asked you this about a few months ago, to compile a roster in this day and age of transfer portal, NIL, NBA, whatever, is so hard. How has this team gelled so well that offensively there doesn't seem like these guys have been playing together for 2 or 3 years?
Our staff has done a tremendous job in bringing in players that are talented players, but also fit our culture and fit our system. And because of that, that's made the transition quicker and better than it is for some. Because, as you know, it used to be people like to set up 5-year plans or 3-year plans, and nowadays it'd be like you going in each day, who's going to be our guest on the show, and not having an idea. I mean, because you're recruiting a half new team based on guys that might transfer or go pro or whatnot. It's a lot harder to predict the future, and each and every year that you have a team that puts each other first and is talented enough to win the last game, that's really a blessing. And that's why you see it's so hard for teams to sustain success, and why we've been so blessed at Baylor University.
I've seen this myself, but also have had others attached to the program tell me that, you had the Austin Sachs, that play that was set up, and yet they changed it a couple of times to make sure he had the shot. The bench seems to be as involved and full throttle, caring about everybody who's on the court or not. You've had 4 or so players, 20-plus points in a game, 8 players, 10 points, double figures or more in a game. How has that come together so quickly?
Just what you said. Well, we got a culture of joy, Jesus, others, yourself, and the players playing for the right reasons, right priorities. And your biggest strength can always be your biggest weakness, is something I always say. And our depth is our strength until people start caring more about themselves, and then it becomes a weakness. So as long as we keep the right priorities, then good things should happen for us. All
right. Are you a scribbler on the whiteboard, or are you like really neat with your X's and O's?
Hey, I make a doctor look good.
That answers everything. Hey, man, congratulations last night. Appreciate what you're doing. Good luck. See you soon. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, and thank you, Baylor family.
Scott Drew on 365 Sports.
We get Coach Drew every other week, Nikki Collin about every other week, as the basketball season, of course, will start to take even more center stage and eventually be a main focus at the turn of the year in 2024. They have Seton Hall, Michigan State, I think that's a road game, and then Duke in the month of December coming up. Back in a moment, Paul Catalina at his top 5. Final days of the Black Friday sales event going on at Allen Samuels. Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat General Manager, CEO Ted Teague listens to our show. In fact, he texted me the other day about, so where's Gary Patterson these days, who is now kind of, at least for now, out of college coaching, living in Fort Worth after an analyst job at Texas. Love talking to him about sports and love talking to him about what is Allen Samuels on the lot. 2023, the new 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie, crew cab, 4-wheel drive, $14,000 off MSRP. How about demo specials? 2023 Jeep Wagoneer Series 3, the new ones, $6,800 off MSRP. Tahoe Expedition owners get extra $2,000, a 2023 Ram 1500 quad cab, $43,999. That's a $10,800 savings, or 2023 Ram four-wheel drive quad cab, $38,999. Tax, title, and license, that's plus tax, title, and license, or a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited. What a beautiful car. 4x2 demo, $50,620. Now, just $41,657, savings of nearly $9,000. See dealer for details. They have pre-owned and a great selection of pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs. Almost every brand represented right there on the lot. Ted T., Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 head coaching candidates at Duke. Mike Elko on his way to Texas A&M. Duke's job is open, and this was going to be yesterday's, and it was suggested to me to do a Baylor offensive coordinator one, so I wanted to do that. And then I thought, like, oh, man, I really hope Duke doesn't hire somebody or elevate someone just fast. So they have not. So top 5 Duke head coaching candidates. Number 5. He has an affinity for this place. He got down the road a little bit with Stanford last year. Jason Garrett, former Cowboys head coach. He spent a lot of time there when David Cutcliffe was there. They had a friendship. Cutcliffe, of course, retired, and that's why Mike Elko got the job. It would not be surprising to me to see Jason Garrett, Mr. Ivy League himself, if he wants to get back into coaching and he's interested, but he didn't do Stanford because he kind of felt that it would be harder for them to compete in the NIL world. Duke's been a little bit more aggressive in that, even though Riley Leonard is leaving, but they have been aggressive. Mike Elko got a lot of guys out of the portal this last year for what was a really good season for them. So it wouldn't be completely outside the realm of possibility to see Jason Garrett, the clapper himself, in this mix.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like this would be very split response to a hire like Jason Garrett at really any college program. I think it very much would depend on the fit. I mean, Duke, I can understand why people think that would fit. He got rumored back in 2021 for that job, and I don't know how much there really was to it then. I see him getting kind of put back in there again this time around, and I suppose if he had an interest, that's something they could look into. I don't know how much I'm buying Duke's actual interest into Jason Garrett, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's out there. He's around the college game on those Notre Dame broadcasts, and I'm not sure of his interest level in joining the college ranks, which would be a first for him, I believe. I was trying to go the head coaching route. So, yeah, not sure how much I buy this when I see his name brought up, but it was brought up a couple years ago, so, yeah.
Number 4, Jim Leonard. I think this would be a really good fit for him. I do. If he's not going to be if he doesn't want to just be a DC at a place like USC or whatever, then I think this is a huge fit for him. I think he'd do well there. I don't know if he'd be there long like Mike Elko, but this is a nice transition from a Mike Elko to a Jim Leonard. Very similar coaching styles, very similar in what they're going to be defense first and really hard-nosed. But Jim Leonard needs to be a head coach somewhere eventually. He's a really good head coach, or he's a really good coach, and I think he's going to be a good head coach down the line. And Duke would be a nice place for him to start.
Yeah, I just went and looked. Jason Garrett's never coached in the college ranks, which I was just unsure if he had ever even been in a GA somewhere.
Yeah, the only time you hear about Princeton is because he played there.
Yeah, he went to the NFL, and then he got straight into coaching. But, I was just curious if there had been a stop that I couldn't remember. But, yeah, that would be a first for him. Jim Leonard, a hot name that we were talking about the last coaching carousel. Haven't kept up much with him, but, hey, it's coaching carousel season once again, so I could see where his name could be bandied about. Haven't seen much mention of him at all, actually, even with the Duke job, but thanks for the reminder that he's still out there and just serving as an analyst in the Big Ten. So, yeah, I could see where you want to just peel back and see what his interest level might be.
Yeah. Number 3, Florida State offensive coordinator Alex Atkins. If you're going to go, commit some ACC on ACC violence here. Alex Atkins is a rising coach in those ranks. He's not the guy who calls the plays at Florida State, but man, I got to tell you, he has reshaped what their offense looks like. He's reshaped, especially what their offensive line looks like. He was the offensive coordinator at Charlotte, so he's familiar. He's familiar with North Carolina. I mean, he doesn't have to go and meet a lot of people. I know that's not really the biggest thing, but it certainly would help. So he's on the rise. I don't think he's their guy, and I don't think it's his time yet, but it's coming in the next couple of years, and I would not be surprised if this is like the year he gets a couple of interviews before maybe next year he gets the head coaching job.
Yeah, if the head coaching job is coming, it'd have to be at a smaller institution. It seems like I was talking about with Brando. It's just not it's not the wild, crazy carousel that we've had the last couple of years. There's just only a handful of select jobs really that have opened up. But no, he's an up and coming guy, as you mentioned, done a really good job at Florida State. And seems bound for, at some point in time, a leap up the promotional ladder. He's been, I think he was at Charlotte previously, so he's been in North Carolina before. I don't know how much that kind of stuff even really matters. I can see where you want a Texas guy in Texas to recruit Texas guys, but I don't know how that flies. Like, do you need the familiarity in North Carolina? You know what I mean? To
well,
work?
We don't know because we're not
there. That's my whole point, is I don't know.
But
I mean, if it matters, then he's been there, had a stint in the state. But yeah, I know that you like him quite a bit, and I've seen his name bandied about when it comes to guys on the rise. So
he's installed a toughness that was not there on the offensive line.
I mean, look at it.
I remember when Clemens first got there and how bad that they were, and they were one of the worst offensive lines in the country not that long ago. I mean, it's been a few years at this point, but it doesn't seem that long ago.
I think Randy Clemens was the best coach on the Taggart staff. Really, that was not left over from like Odell Higgins, who's been there forever. But Alex Atkins is he put bones back in their body. Like they weren't tough. They were just jelly. Mm-hmm. Like that's what they were before. Number 2, Kurt Cignetti at James Madison. Nobody's should be surprised that his name comes up for any job, but he is an older coach. He's 62. So I doubt in this point in his career he's looking to move around all that much.
He looks like he should be like the coach at Northwestern, Duke. Places like that. The glasses.
Look, it makes a lot of sense that this would be the guy, because you can have Kurt Cignetti for a few years, and then he'll probably win a lot at Duke because he's a really good coach. And then, when he retires, then you can get your next guy, and then you don't have to maybe play because if you hire Jim Leonard has 2 or 3 good years at Duke. Jim Leonard's going to be the head coach at a Big Ten school or somewhere like that. So you're going to probably lose him, but Kurt Cignetti wouldn't necessarily be a climber. He would that would just be his job.
In his 60s,
Yeah, he's in his 60s. So that, coupled with the fact that he's fantastic, would make him a great fit for Duke.
I mean, they're a great story. They're a great football program. Done an excellent job there in handling all of the bowl stuff. Obviously they took a lump right after that became the hottest topic of conversation, but eventually got what they wanted there in the end. I've seen his name thrown around a lot. I saw his name thrown around for, what was the other job? I think it was Indiana, maybe, that his name was being thrown around for a little bit. So he's definitely
same situation from Indiana.
So he's been thrown around a bit in both of those circles there. And obviously a hell of a program, hell of a coach. They handled that transition like bosses, and I'd be very interested in seeing him have to chop the S off, go from the Dukes and chop that S off and go run there with the Blue Devils.
Yeah. Number 1, Manny Diaz. Again, if you want to transition and kind of keep similar styles to match up with the roster that you might have, a defense-first approach that Mike Elko brought you, and a guy who's been a head coach in the ACC before, Manny Diaz, albeit not that long, and someone who just had one of the better seasons as a coordinator that you can possibly have, that Manny Diaz had at Penn State. So he's going to be a head coach again sometime soon, to me, this is a really good fit. Although I guess you would worry because he's not an older coach, that he may not be there for a while, but he's already kind of been through the ringer as a head coach, so maybe he would kind of plant himself at Duke and ride that out.
You really like Manny Diaz.
I do like Manny Diaz.
Really
I like Manny Diaz.
Y'all notice that though? Like
Getting text messages
and that's not a
on
knock.
him.
I just said you do like him.
I like
clearly.
Manny Diaz. He's like, I think he kind of got jobbed at Miami a little bit. I don't think that all of that was his fault. I think it's clear that look, Mario Cristobal hasn't like run away with it and made everything better, and it's not already Mario Cristobal's fault. Sometimes it is the organization. Like, is it Matt Rule and Frank Reich's fault that the Panthers suck? Not completely.
Well, I did think it was Matt Rule's fault until it turns out like no, the owner sucks.
No, the owner sucks.
Yeah.
Like, okay, at Miami, the owners are the university has taken their very valuable and successful football program and decided that 1989 was the last time they're going to stop giving money to it. And they're just not doing the things they weren't for a long time. I know they are now, but like, is that Manny's fault? Is that Mario's fault if they weren't doing that? No. So yeah, I like Manny Diaz. He's been an excellent coordinator everywhere he's been, and he was a good head coach at Temple. It's why he got the job at Miami. So like, I think he maybe deserves another shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's done an excellent job at Penn State, that's for sure. I mean, really an excellent job there with the Nittany Lions, and he's been all over the ACC. He's been, elsewhere as well, but certainly familiar with the ACC region and the rivalries and all the stuff that comes with that, even if it is shifting a little bit with some new booties coming in. But, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who seems like he's taken his whips for, or his lashes for the not working out at Miami, and now he's worked his way slowly back, and it seems like he is kind of on the verge now of a point where maybe it's time for him to get that phone call again. I'm not sure how Duke fans would respond to that, but he's got the resume.
Garrett, thank you, sir. Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, 365 Sports Tonight, as always, every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. Levi Caraway. Are we going to do picks this week?
Yeah, we'll do the.
All right,
again,
you
we'll
need to
tomorrow.
remind me of that. You always hide them from us, so we can't prepare. We cannot prepare.
Okay. Pick the Power 5 championship games. That's the 5
those
games.
Are the 5. There we go.
I mean,
for Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, thanks to our incredible sponsors. We appreciate you, everybody. Those of you who watch or listen, however you do, and consume what we do, please spread the word. I'm David Smoak. Have a great night.
Ideal MRI